तो आज का जो हमारा सेशन है काफ़ी खास है क्योंकि in this today's session we are going to address a very important issue, that is plastic use and its effect in human health and as well as in water. तो यहाँ पे हम लोग to just give you a context, आज का जो हमारा जो एज अ होल ये सेशन है ये वाटर क्वालिटी मैटर्स, इट्स एन ऑनगोइंग सेशन ऑफ आवर्स जहाँ पे हम लोग वाटर क्वालिटी रिलेटेड वेरियस इश्यूज को एड्रेस करते हैं और हम लोगों ने ऑलरेडी नाइट्रेट, आयरन और इन जैसे बहुत सारे हमारे जो वाटर क्वालिटी इश्यूज है उसको ऑलरेडी एड्रेस किया हुआ है। और आज का जो हमारा टॉपिक है इट विल बी ऑन plastic matters, plastic use, plastic effects in water and human health. And we have some distinguished guests also with us. And also we are very, very glad to see कि हमारे ही एक वाटर क्वालिटी चैम्पियन अंजलि जी भी अपना रिसर्च पेपर हमारे साथ शेयर करेंगे ऑन प्लास्टिक मैटर्स। तो ज़्यादा टाइम मैं नहीं लूँगी और इसी को कहते हुए आई जस्ट वुड लाइक टू पास इट ओवर टू सुंदर सर हियर। सुंदर सर विल गिव अ कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ टुडेज सेशन एंड उसके बाद ही आज का जो हमारा सेशन है वो हम लोग स्टार्ट करेंगे। ओवर टू यू सुंदर सर।
Shamila, you are able to hear me?
Yes sir.
Yeah. Welcome everybody यहाँ पर इस सेशन के लिए। और जैसे शर्मिला ने यहाँ पर शेयर किया, हमने एक सीरीज स्टार्ट किया था काफ़ी टाइम पहले ऑन पुटिंग अटेंशन टू डिफरेंट इश्यूज इन वाटर एंड डिफरेंट कंटामिनेशन इश्यूज इन वाटर। और आप में से कई लोगों ने उसमें से पहले के सेशंस अटेंड किए हैं ऑन नाइट्रेट इश्यूज, आयरन इश्यूज, आर्सेनिक इश्यूज। और उसमें कई लोगों ने पार्टिसिपेट भी किए हैं। हम लोग ये भी देख रहे हैं कि सेशन की जो वीडियोस को हम यूट्यूब में डालते हैं तो उसका काफ़ी अच्छा रिस्पांस भी है। एंड वी फेल्ट दैट वी शुड टेक अपॉर्चुनिटीज टू कंटिन्यू दिस सीरीज एंड स्पेशली इन दिस मंथ व्हेन on World Environment Day, one of the primary thematic focus is on plastics in water and microplastics. हमें लगा कि we will reach out to some of you who are working on these issues, and we'll try to bring you all together to share with all of us about what is really going on on plastics and microplastics in water. One of the things which really woke me up around a year back और ईयर एंड हाफ बैक, जब हम लोग काफ़ी कुछ ओशंस में माइक्रोप्लास्टिक्स के बारे में रिसेंटली पढ़ रहे थे और समझ रहे थे। एंड वन ऑफ द थिंग्स विच रियली वोक मी अप इज दैट वन ऑफ द बिग सोर्सेस ऑफ माइक्रोप्लास्टिक्स इन द ओशन इज एक्चुअली द क्लोथ्स दैट वी वेयर, यानी कि जो हम कपड़ा पहनते हैं। और क्योंकि हम सिंथेटिक मटेरियल से कपड़े पहनते हैं तो ये जब वॉश करते हैं, वो भले ही हाथ से वॉश करें, वॉशिंग मशीन से करें, जैसे भी करें, तो हर बार हम जब कपड़े धोते हैं तो उससे अराउंड थाउजेंड्स और मिलियंस ऑफ स्मॉल पार्टिकल्स ऑफ माइक्रोप्लास्टिक्स गेट रिलीज्ड इनटू वाटर एंड अल्टीमेटली ये सब वाटर बॉडीज में जाता है एंड इट गोस इनटू द ओशन। इट रियली टोल्ड मी दैट इंडिविजुअल चॉइसेस जो हम करते हैं बिना जान के करते हैं, कई बार जान के करते हैं, तो उसका इतना लॉन्ग टर्म इफेक्ट होता है और बहुत ही बड़े कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस होते हैं। और कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस आज हम लोग समझेंगे। अगर हमें लगता है कि माइक्रोप्लास्टिक्स जो आर्टिक्स में जब पहुंच गया है और माइक्रोप्लास्टिक्स वूम्ब तक पहुंच गया है, गर्भ तक पहुंच गया है, जो शिशु है जो पैदा हो रहा है वहां तक पहुंच गया है, तो मतलब ये इश्यू काफ़ी बड़ा ही है। भले ही हम काफ़ी डिनायल देख रहे हैं अभी भी इस इश्यूज में। पिछले 3 साल पहले एक रिपोर्ट भी आया था कि हेल्थ इश्यूज इसका पता नहीं चल रहा है, बट आई फील दैट इट इज जस्ट दैट समटाइम्स इट बिकम्स टू लेट बिफोर वी स्टार्ट सीइंग समथिंग which is like too enormous, which has happened to many issues. For example, when we are seeing hotspots of cancer in many parts of India now because of various contaminants such as arsenic, and others. So before it gets to that point, we have to really understand that microplastics are very important and plastics in water are very important. They really matter, and many of you here are actually working on it. I'm able to see here Anjali and Mansi here, and also other speakers probably who are also coming in. CEE is doing fascinating work across the country to manage plastics, to reuse, recycle, and to reduce usage of plastics. So we have like a wide set of speakers. बट स्पेशली मैं सबसे ज्यादा यहाँ पर एम्फोसिस देना चाहता हूँ। मुझे पता नहीं कि वो बच्चे यहाँ पर आज ज्वाइन कर पाएंगे क्या, क्योंकि उनका टाइम जोन काफी डिफरेंट है। हमने करीब 8-9 महीने पहले शिकागो के इनर सिटी किड्स, कई चिल्ड्रन हैं जिनके साथ एक ग्रुप काम करते हैं, एकेडमिक ग्रुप। वो हमें अप्रोच किए फॉर इंटर्न्स फॉर दोज चिल्ड्रन अराउंड, दे वेर अराउंड 15 यंग किड्स, अराउंड 12 साल के 15 साल के बच्चे थे। और उन्होंने मिलकर खुद से काफी रिसर्च किया ऑन प्लास्टिक्स इन वाटर, एंड दे प्रोड्यूस्ड a set of communication material which we will be sharing with all of you, and we want to co-create and take it out with the help of all of you people. So thanks very much to those children from academic group in Chicago. आज के दिन में बाउंड्रीज डोंट मैटर, जस्ट इंटेंशन मैटर्स, राइट? कोई भी कहीं से भी एक दूसरे को हेल्प कर सकते हैं। दिस इज अ ग्रेट एग्जांपल of how these children from Chicago are able to support us here in India. So thank you so much to all of them, and I hope कि उनमें से कोई आज ज्वाइन कर पाएंगे तो बहुत अच्छा रहेगा ना। तो over to you, Sharmila or Rashika. I don't see Sharmila here, so whoever is taking it up. Thank you so much.
Hi, sir. I'm here. Hi, thank you, sir, for the context. So, अभी हम लोग आगे बढ़ेंगे, and we would like to invite here Anjali Tamrakar ji, and she is a research fellow from MIT Manipal, and she is going to present her paper on plastics in water. So I'll request Anjali ji. Anjali, if you're here, if you could just go ahead with your presentation here. Thank you. Anjali, can we hear us? Okay. So till Anjali, unmute herself and present the today's session. So Anjali is also our water quality champion, जो हमारे water quality champion थी, और हम लोगों के साथ ही water quality management course का भी एक हिस्सा थी. So we are very glad to see her here. Yes, Anjali, you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. It's an honor to see everyone again after the Water Quality Champion program. So, good morning, everybody. My name is Anjali Tamrakar, and I am currently working as a Junior Research Fellow in Manipal Institute of Technology, Karnataka. And I have recently registered as PhD scholar there itself in Manipal Institute of Technology. So I am very excited to welcome you all to this session on plastics as an emerging concern. Plastics have been an integral part of our lives, but the impact of plastics on the environment is increasingly alarming. So just to make this session a bit interactive, I just want you all to mention what plastics you are around while attending this webinar. Please keep mentioning what you are around which are made up of plastic, so I'll get to know, and this session will be a bit interactive also. So just keep on mentioning and I'll share my presentation in front of you all. Yeah, okay. Bottle, yeah, very important. One of very common things we have around. Yeah, mouse, chair. Sure. Please keep on sharing. Okay. So, is my screen visible? Can you please tell me about that? Sharmila ma'am, is my screen visible?
Yes, Anjali, it's visible.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much all for responding. We'll start with this. Okay. So the topic of presentation is plastic, a contaminant of emerging concern. So as I have mentioned before, I am currently working on microplastics itself. As you know that the area, the place where I'm working is a coastal region. And here people consume seafood as their main food source every day along. So the contents which I am going to cover throughout this session will be plastics, single-use plastics, impacts of plastic littering, microplastics, plastics, it's everywhere, national level plastic bans, questions for the day, just to think it through what we are going through. Yeah, so we'll move ahead. Plastics. Plastics is basically a word coming from a Greek word plastikos. And plastikos basically mean things which is no, which can get molded. And as you know, plastics are very easy to get molded and they come in various size, shapes, and colors. And it is very durable. And the very important reason for its consumption by humans is it's very cheap, economical, but it's not at all good for the environment. Next, we'll go ahead. As you can see here, the world has already produced 7.8 billion tons of plastics by 2015. And with the recent data today, 8,300 metric tons plastic is still in use right now, out of which only 9% is getting recycled, 60% has been thrown away, and 31% is still in use. You won't believe, but those plastic bags which we use on a daily basis takes 10 to 20 years to get degraded. And the plastic bottles which we are using on a daily basis are taking 400 years to get degraded. So they are here for a lifetime, and we are using plastics like no other thing. And from starting our day with brushing our teeth till we are sleeping, we have plastics all around. And the plastics which are in use right now acquires 50% is the single use plastics. So whenever we are going for buying juice, हम उसके लिए जो कप्स यूज कर रहे हैं, जो स्ट्रॉज यूज कर रहे हैं, रोज जो हम कचरा फेंक रहे हैं, जो बैग यूज कर रहे हैं, सारी की सारी चीजें प्लास्टिक ही हैं. एंड सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट पार्ट जो है कि सिंगल यूज प्लास्टिक्स विच आर लाइक वन ऑफ द मोस्ट degrading, most environmental not unfriendly material which we are using on a daily basis. Like this, as I have told before, the only the plastics which are already available to us, only 9% is getting recycled, which is quite concerning. Out of which the single-use plastics, that is the food wrappers, grocery bags, beverage bottle caps, cutlery, cigarette butts, which we are using on a daily basis, it's all around with us, and it is almost acquiring 50% of the total plastic waste that is getting generated. So we'll talk about the impacts of plastic littering. So environmental impact is, it is contaminating soil and water. As you know that as plastics start getting weathered with the time, the surface morphology of plastics gets differed from the earlier. And the surface area of the plastics also increases, which absorbs a lot of pollutants, which it takes with it to the ocean, to wherever it is getting dumped. And it is already contaminating the soil and water, choke waterways, and exacerbate the natural disasters, and even a very reason for the mortality of biota. And my work of my PhD work is basically on this. Next is health impacts. It blockages the sewage systems, provide breeding grounds for mosquitoes, and increases transmission of diseases, releases toxic chemicals, and food chain contamination. The very important thing which is going all around is the food chain bioaccumulation, food chain transferring of plastics along with the food. So what happens is plastic is getting believed as a food by the particular fish or organisms, and they consume it. And from the lower trophic level organisms to the higher trophic level organism, it is getting transferred, and it is ultimately getting consumed by us human. So this is a big concerning topic we have to be very much aware of. Next is economic loss. As you see, one of the reason is when the organisms consume plastics, they have the feeling that they are not hungry. So when they stop feeling like they are not hungry, they stop eating, and as they stop eating, the death arises. So the organisms which have been living for more 4 or 5 years, it dies before its total life cycle, which is also affecting our export import of seafood. As you know, today India is the world's largest seafood exporter. to China and US, Singapore. Imagine if this plastic contamination keeps on happening, how it is going to affect us in a very big manner. And this is one of the most important, what do you call it, jobs for people living in coastal region too. So this is that. And then high cost of transport to centralized recycling facilities, future cost of removing accumulated plastic litter, it is going to affect us all. Moving further, this is the saddest picture I have seen. Like, you see how this is how we are affecting these organisms in a big manner. We are using fish nets and the equipments which are all again made up of plastics. When we use fish nets, they get accumulated in the ocean after getting breaking down, and they just, this is how the situation goes, and animals dies very early because of the continuous plastic exposure. So the basic definition for everyone will be of microplastics will be plastics which are lesser than 5 mm size are considered as microplastics, and lesser than 5 mm, that is one till 1 mm, 1 nanometer is still microplastics, and below that it's all nanoplastics. And the most interesting fact that I came along, I was going through papers, and there is one paper telling that plastics less than 5 mm are translocating from cells to cells, which is very much concerning for the time being, and it is getting retained on inside the tissues for very long time, making making all the organisms having that station feeling that they are not feeling hunger. So yeah, this part. So moving ahead, as I have talked about the food chain situation, the trophic transfer, here is the effects of plastics, microplastics. Microplastics are more harmful than the macroplastics, as I have told, that it is getting transferred from cell to cell and getting retained in the tissues for a very long time. Mostly what organisms do is they mistake it as a food and they consume it in a very large manner. Then, as I have mentioned about the surface morphology of microplastics, heavy metal contamination, biofilms production on the surface of the weathered plastics, it's all getting accumulated and getting eaten by the biota in the ocean. And this is all very much going to affect them in a longer run. Next, these are some of the cutouts I have been through. That plastic is actually everywhere. It has been searched on in air, it is there. Ocean, air. In the bottom of the ocean, it's there. This is the very recent research by the scientists. And this is particularly named on the plastic pollution crisis we are going through. This is the smallest organisms on in ocean, where we are not supposed to be finding microplastics, but here we are in the dead end. And this organism has been found in Mariana Trench. Imagine where the plastic is all here, like it's already reached to the deepest point on the earth. And it is sad to know that it's everywhere and contaminating organisms and get being the very reason for the death of organisms. Plastics is also inside us. As sir was talking, it has been it is inside the womb, it has been seen in placenta, it's in blood, it's like the smallest size you can know. And plastic is everywhere in fruits, vegetables, all the fertilizers we are using. It's because yeah, fertilizer, soil, it's inside the soil, so yeah, it is going inside our food too. Moving ahead, these are few of the papers. As sir was talking before, first evidence of microplastics in human placenta. Yeah, it's there and it's very concerning. Next is detection of microplastics in human lung tissue. Discovery and quantification of plastic particles, pollution in humans. And it has reached to breast milk too. How concerning this particular scenario is and how big it is, you have gotten the idea already. So a few of the measures has been taken for the plastic bans and regulations. What is the impact of national level plastic ban and regulations? So this was the major idea has been used for the ban and regulations, like 20% no to little impact, reduced consumption or less pollution, no data on impact. This is the current scenario of the national level plastic ban regulation for the time being. As sir was talking before, every year 70 million tons of fibers are used in clothing industries and 60% are synthetic. As we wash our clothes, fibers are getting released. A recent study took 6 kg loads of laundry polyesters, cotton, polyester, acrylic, and they are getting washed. They researched on it. So they got to know that 14,000, 1,40,000 fibers of polycotton mixed to a whopping 7 lakh fibers of acrylic is getting out per load, which is very concerning. Fibers that go onto the sewage system, they go inside the waterways and they finally get dumped inside the ocean and gets eaten by the organisms living inside the ocean. So now we have to come up with new R's. Reuse, recycle, reduce is all in the past. Now we have to come up with a whole cycle of R's. That is, refuse single-use plastics, reduce, reuse, recycle, rethink, and redesign. Because we can actually redesign the things which we are using on a daily basis. Apart from using plastic bottles or dabbas which we use in the kitchen for keeping the masalas and everything, we can switch to glasses or anything biodegradable which can be used again and again and can be degraded in no time, not plastics. Like little steps we can do. Like on a daily basis, we are using garbage bags. So instead of using garbage bags, we can use three different dustbins for dry weight, for wet weight, like that. So small steps only can be done to reduce plastics in our daily lives. So before this, uh, I'll have few questions for you all. Is what will be the cost of our inaction? What prioritized action to be taken to minimize single-use plastics? Is biodegradable plastic an alternative? What should be the roadmap for policymakers? You think of these questions and let us know. The transition to more eco-friendly alternative can be a lengthy process, of course, but strengthening circular thinking and waste management system would start to reduce the plastic pollution for sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anjali. It was really a very insightful presentation. A lot you have covered and a great introduction to today's session. So here she have also left us with some very provoking questions. जो questions हमको शायद सोचने पड़ेंगे कि क्या कर सकते हैं हम भी. What can be our future things that we can do for our for here. क्या क्या कर सकते हैं, क्या किस तरह से हम लोग प्लास्टिक यूज़ को बंद कर सकते हैं, या फिर किस तरह से जो भी कंसर्निंग चीज़ें यहाँ पे उन्होंने बोली है कि अभी प्लास्टिक हैव रीच टू अ मदर्स मिल्क टू, मतलब यहाँ पे इस तरह से इस टाइप तक यहाँ पे चला गया है. तो इट्स वेरी कंसर्निंग एंड इट्स अ वेरी सीरियस मैटर. एंड आज का जो हमारा सेशन है, हम लोग आगे के भी जो सेशंस रहेंगे हम लोग ट्राई करेंगे कि इस पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक के ऊपर और बातचीत करें और हमारे जो एक्सपर्ट्स हैं, पैनलिस्ट हैं, उनसे भी हम लोग और इसके बारे में जानें. सो फॉर नाउ इफ़ देयर इज़ एनी क्वेश्चन फॉर अंजलि हियर, अगर आप लोगों के मन में कोई क्वेश्चन है जो आप लोग उससे पूछना चाहते हैं रिगार्डिंग द प्रेजेंटेशन शी हैव जस्ट शेयर्ड विद अस, you can just write down in the chat box also. तो she'll also try to answer here. और हम लोग आगे के भी हमारे सेशंस में भी उसको लेते रहेंगे. तो प्लीज इफ यू कैन गो अहेड विथ योर क्वेश्चंस हियर, विल बी शी इज हियर फॉर विथ अस फॉर सम टाइम एंड शी विल डेफिनेटली बी ग्लैड टू आंसर. एनी क्वेश्चंस फ्रॉम एनीवन जो आप लोगों को लगा, या फिर कोई थॉट्स भी अगर आप यहाँ पे शेयर करना चाहते हैं.
एक्चुअली क्योंकि अभी हम शेयर कर सकते हैं अबाउट व्हाट यू गाइज आर थिंकिंग अबाउट द अप्रोचेस फॉर द माइक्रोप्लास्टिक्स contamination which is going on. Thank you so much. How can we test or detect microplastics in water? Yeah, okay. So it is very easy how microplastics can be detected in water. There are few set of methods for that. We use sieving technique for this. And we firstly use microscope for the detection. Then we go with the polymer identification, that is to Fourier transfer, FTIR we use for the polymer identification. And SEM we use. SEM is used to know the surface morphology of the microplastics. So as मैंने आप सभी को बताया है कि प्लास्टिक्स जैसे जैसे टाइम के साथ वेदर होना चालू होते हैं, छोटे छोटे पार्टिकल्स में डिवाइड होना स्टार्ट होते हैं, उनके सरफेस मॉर्फोलॉजी में भी डिफरेंस आता है. तो बेसिकली अभी साइंटिस्ट क्या ट्राई कर रहे हैं कि वो वेदरिंग जो हुई है सरफेस की प्लास्टिक के, उसको देखकर वो जानने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि प्लास्टिक्स कितने टाइम से हमारे साथ थे. लाइक फ्रॉम द बिगर प्लास्टिक्स to this smaller plastics, how much time did it take to degrade? This is also a ongoing research which is going on for the time being. And there is size classification also. as मैंने बताया कि पानी 5 mm से जो नीचे हैं उनको ही हम माइक्रोप्लास्टिक्स कंसिडर करते हैं. तो we use sieving techniques and we use chemicals like H2O2 for the organic matter digestion. And it is a set of steps which we do. I can share it individually if you want that from me. Here explaining will be a bit difficult, but yeah, we have already done microplastic detection in water, sediment, soil, road dust, air, biota. I'm currently doing on biota for now. Yeah, almost everywhere it is. How to detect plastics or leaching chemicals in human blood? Sorry, but I'm currently not doing anything related to human blood. Like I haven't done my microplastic study in human blood. If I come across that, I'll for sure answer that. How to detect plastic leaching? How would you answer your own questions on bioplastics? Yeah. So for the time being, we are currently in process of that biodegradable plastics are there, they good for a longer run. So let's see, it's still on ongoing research for the time being, but yeah, still acceptable approach, better than the plastics which we are using now. We should not think for coastal management. I think few department needs to follow plastic first. Yeah, few measures are taking, but yeah, it's already 70 million tons. I don't know how can we get over this amount of plastics, but yeah, there are what we can do is we can have our individual approaches on this and work on that. Currently, we are seeing how particular plastic is getting inside. Do we have BIS standard for plastics in water? No, sir, not for the time being. We don't have it. We have those limits for, as I have told you about the how heavy metal contamination, how biofilm is getting uh, attached to the surface of the microplastics. So we have a particular permissible limit for how much heavy metal can be consumed by the organisms. Above that, we cannot. So what we can do is we can go for that for the time being. There is no separate microplastics data or BIS standard for that. Till now, I haven't come across any things. And yeah, this kind. Yes, there are studies on the cigarette butts which we are using now. It is a very alarming situation for the time being, and yeah, I can share that paper with you all for sure. It is one of it is in a good journal, and it is a very good paper. Should we align processing? What is the standard value to throw any plastic in sea? See, for the time being, I don't think throwing any plastic is good for the ocean, but there is no standard guideline for how much plastics can be thrown away in ocean. Any plastic is going to harm the organism and the ocean life. For the time being, the first step which we can see is environmental day has the theme plastic. So yeah, one measure has been taken for the time being, but it will take a long time to make all the policies and everything for the plastic consumption and through dumping. Is anyone reached out in conclusion of placing lace corporate wrappers? I think, yeah, that is true. There is still no steps taken for that. It's still in the market. As yeah, government has tried to ban the single-use plastics in July month also, but I don't think any major change take has been there. But yeah, we are trying our level best for that. At least individually, when I started doing my research in microplastics, I got to know how difficult it is to live around the plastics and how badly it is contaminating our ocean life. So yeah, I am also trying to, at individual level, I'm trying to use as less plastics as I can.
Yes, Anjali.
Yeah, sure, I'll share the paper with you, with everyone. Thank you so much. I'll do. I hope I answered. What else
Yes,
was there?
Anjali. I think first of all, we are very glad to see that so much enthusiasm for the participants. I think a lot of questions are pouring in, and I'll request Anjali to please, if you can, if it is possible for you to please, if you can also share the thoughts or any questions, if you'd like to answer them in the chat also. We will like to move on with our sessions also here. And once again, Anjali, thank you so much for coming and spending your time here and sharing your valuable research. I think we got to learn a lot of things from you today, and I am pretty sure that all our participants feel the same. सभी ने definitely बहुत कुछ सीखा है आज यहाँ से, and it's a very good start for our session today. So thank you once again, Anjali, for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
या सो फॉर ऑल द क्वेश्चंस विल ट्राई कि हम लोग बाद में भी आप लोगों का जो क्वेश्चंस है उनको एड्रेस करते रहे, हम लोग कोशिश करेंगे. सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, फॉर ऑल द पार्टिसिपेंट्स हु हैव जॉइन लेट टुडे, वी आर हैविंग अ सेशन ऑन वाटर क्वालिटी मैटर्स का जो हमारा ऑनगोइंग सीरीज है, उसका हम लोगों का टॉपिक आज प्लास्टिक मैटर्स का हम लोगों ने यहाँ पे रखा है. We are first of all very delighted to have each one of us, each one of you join us today from different corners of the world, I'll say, because I can see participants from other countries also. So thank you for getting united today by a shared commitment to addressing the crucial issues affecting our planet's water resources. And we are very glad to also share with you कि हमारे जो आज के experts हैं, हमारे जो आज के panelists हैं, बहुत अच्छे अच्छे उन्होंने अपने ऑलरेडी अंजलि हैव शेयर्ड हर पेपर. विल ट्राई टू शेयर हर पेपर विद ईच वन ऑफ यू आल्सो. whoever is interested, you can approach us. And we'd like to now go on with our session today. So for our next guest today, we would like to invite Dr. Mansi Bal Bhargava, National President, Water Resources Council, and also Director, Wednesdays for Water Foundation. Dr. Mansi Bal Bhargava is a transdisciplinary learner of the built environment from sustainability and liability perspective that include architecture, design, development, planning, management, governance. Her 25 years of entrepreneurship, research, and education focus has been on large-scale developments with inclination towards ecological restoration. और आज का जो उन लोगों आज हमारे साथ she is here with us today, and today she is going to she's going to talk about her experience on her paper on the water dump, जो plastic dump in the river Ganga में जो भी effects हो रहे हैं plastic की वजह से on human health and also the environment. She is going to give us more insights on that. So I would like to invite Dr. Mansi to kindly take over from here. Dr. Mansi, if you're here. Yes, ma'am. Can you hear us?
Yes,
Okay.
now I think I'm now allowed to unmute. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
No problem.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Sundar and INREM, and of course, Sharmila, to invite me here and share my experience. I am not a plastic expert. Let me just tell you first, um, at the first point itself. And thank you, Anjali, for the wonderful presentation and also enlightening me because I'm also in the learning phase of thinking how to deal with plastic. So what I'm going to share with you today is first a question to all of you, maybe participants. And you have to answer it without Googling, and by the time I share my screen. Do you know how many types of plastic we are actually talking about when we are talking about tackling plastic pollution? So first thing first, we have to first know who is the devil around us. So if we know that this is a PET bottle plastic, what it does, and that is not enough, you know. So when we want to go ahead and change our consumeristic style or lifestyle, we have to also know what we can, because we are so flooded with choices. We actually are in a situation of inability to choose what is right for us or what is not good for us. So anyone who knows about the plastic types as globally agreed upon? Yes, 7. Yes, very good. Okay, so I'm going to share that also, because we carry this in our project now to tell people when we are surveying. So what I am doing in the project called Tackling, please allow me to share. Yeah, okay, I think I can share. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I'm trying to do, yeah. Okay, so ours is a research project on tackling plastic pollution in the Ganga Basin. So honestly, it's a larger project which talks about tackling where there are many other actors, but my component is on tracking plastic pollution. So there are, I'm going to quickly take you through, but then I will rest more discussion on the plastic issue. But I think it's good for me to orient all of you with the project which we are doing. The project is floated by Center for Global Affairs and Public Policy. All the fellows are all women fellows who are doing the research, and they represent WIKI, Water Resource Council, and W for W Foundation. So I'm actually representing W for W Foundation, not Wednesdays for Water alone, which is our talk series, one of the talk series. The project is actually aimed towards kind of a sea to source expedition with the clean technology sector. And of course, talking about circularity and all other aspects, but importantly, a movement to drive plastic pollution and take available solutions from the local communities, what they can do, and also interact with startups and see how they can be brought to a platform with local authorities. So this is like a multi-pillar project, and I'm going to share the objectives of the project, where the second objective is my scope of work. So the CGAP is actually inviting all startups, and they have tomorrow a conference in Delhi called Parivartan. So they are getting all the plastic solutions which are already taken care in the country, and they are inviting them to different platforms and cities. When I say they are inviting, we just had first leg of our research in Haridwar and Rishikesh, and they were trying to really set up an arrangement or a negotiation between local authorities and the startups which are handling plastic to deal with the plastic of their city. So that's a work which is more business, B2B, I must say. Or the second part is generate research on plastic pollution in Ganga Basin. This is important because a simple theory in management goes like this. You can manage only when you can measure that, right? So that is our scope of work, where we are trying to look at on the Ganga Basin, the categories of plastic, the quantity and the sites of plastic waste, as well as doing some qualitative research with community and local plastic solutions which have been already in place or alternatives. Then the third, as I was mentioning, that's again not my scope of work, but it is important to know that how they are integrated, because we will be part of the work as well, but I'm not going to lead it. to build this relationship between the startup and the local authorities and go pan. So this is like Beat Plastic Pollution Global Campaign के अंदर ही ये वाला काम किया जा रहा है. So I will focus on my research and then also bring my nearly 30 years of experience. So thank you, Sharmila. You actually draw, I don't know where did you draw my bio, but I'm nearly 30 years. So good. I think I know Sundar when I was 25 years of experience and time has moved on. So what we are doing in the project is we are getting data from water. And as rightly mentioned by Anjali also, that there are ways to measure things. So we are doing land-based survey, we are doing a water sampling survey, and we are doing socio-economic surveys. We are not doing the air survey because the focus is on Ganga Basin, and that was not in my scope to really push for doing air surveys also. Then we are doing a rapid assessment, basically around 220 kilometer stretch on between Prayagraj to Varanasi, which will be hardcore water sampling survey, but in Rishikesh, Haridwar, we did around 100 kilometers of survey. And then most of the cities, to bring this relationship between the startup and local authorities, we also plan to organize exhibition, expo and panel discussions. And we are inviting, which we did in Haridwar and Rishikesh. From this entire project, we have already started this anti-plastic movement also with taking youth, and we are calling it Youth Outreach and Education Program, which is kind of a spillover of the activity which we will be doing at Ganga. So this is our timeline. Let me just skip that. Our project is inspired from a National Geographic project. So we are taking like a building, on the already existing knowledge, not to reinvent the wheel, but going further. This project was done in 2019 by a group of, again, women scholars to understand the pollution in the Ganga. And the project actually went on to measure. So basically it was more of a physical study to measure how much plastic goes into Ganga and all. They interestingly use certain methods. So these are research methods. Why I would like to stress on the methods, because somewhere in India we get carried away कि हमको सब कुछ जल्दी से करना है, पर कोई चीज जल्दी से करना और उसको सिस्टमैटिक करने में जो अंतर होता है, वहां पे रिसर्च का रोल होता है. तो कुछ करना है जो होता है वो हम लोग डेवलपमेंट करते हैं. जब कुछ अच्छे से करना है तब हम उसको रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट करते हैं. तो जब हम रिसर्च के थ्रू कोई काम करते हैं तो हमारे पास हार्ड फैक्ट्स होते हैं और हार्ड सॉल्यूशंस भी सामने आते हैं. तो ये जो अंतर है हमको हमारे देश में बहुत सबसे पहले लाना पड़ेगा कि हम किस तरह से रिसर्च बैक्ड हम कोई भी काम करें और जल्दी से कूदना पड़े कोई काम करने के लिए. तो मुझे मालूम है आज की तारीख में बहुत ज्यादा प्लास्टिक है और सबको ऐसा लगता है, एक एंजाइटी है कि सब कुछ जल्दी कर दें. और उसी तरह एक्चुअली हमने सबने ग्रीन रिवॉल्यूशन भी जल्दी किया, व्हाइट रिवॉल्यूशन भी जल्दी किया, आज डेवलपमेंट और विकास भी हम बहुत जल्दी कर रहे हैं क्योंकि हमको जल्दी है. तो हम किसी चीज को रुक के समझ के स्टडी करके उसको सॉल्व करने की जगह हम जल्दी से सॉल्यूशन चाहते हैं. ये हमारी फितरत में है. तो कहीं ना कहीं हम उससे एक स्टेप पीछे ले रहे हैं और हम सिस्टमैटिकली उसको समझने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. तो ये सारे मेथड्स जो हैं इस प्रोजेक्ट में यूज किए गए थे. हम जब कर रहे हैं अब 5-4 साल बाद हमने कुछ मेथड्स और ऐड किए हैं. तो जो मेथड्स है लैंड बेस्ड मेथड है, जैसे अभी अंजलि भी समझा रही थी कि उसको समझे कैसे कि प्लास्टिक कितना है. जैसा कि मैंने बोला कोई चीज मैनेज करने के लिए उसको मेजर करना बहुत जरूरी है. ये मैनेजमेंट का प्रिंसिपल होता है. तो लैंड बेस्ड सिस्टम में हम एक्चुअली जाके ऐसे कुछ स्ट्रेच लेके हम उसमें प्लास्टिक को काउंट कर रहे हैं. तो उसको लिटर ट्रांजेक्ट है, ऐप है, वो डेब्री ट्रैकर ऐप है जो डेवलप किया गया था इस प्रोजेक्ट के थ्रू. तो हमने वही ऐप को यूटिलाइज किया है. फिर उसमें इनपुट्स ऑफ प्लास्टिक पैकेजिंग हम फिर लोकल अथॉरिटीज के साथ कम्युनिकेट कर रहे हैं. म्युनिसिपल वेस्ट साइट जहाँ पे कलेक्ट होता है वहां जाके हमने मेजर किया कि एक 50 किलो के बॉटल पैकेज में कितने तरह के, तो प्लास्टिक कैरेक्टराइजेशन किया. जो मैंने आपसे पूछा कितने तरह के प्लास्टिक होते हैं, तो हमने बैठ के उसको कैरेक्टराइज किया और हमने मेजर किया कि अगर हम 50 किलो के हम 10 बैग लेते हैं तो किस तरह के हमें प्लास्टिक मिल रहे हैं. तो उसको हम अपस्केल कर सकते हैं कि हरिद्वार और ऋषिकेश में कितना प्लास्टिक जनरेट हो रहा है. अगर हम जानेंगे ही नहीं कितना प्लास्टिक जनरेट हो रहा है तो हम उसको सॉल्व करने कैसे जाएंगे. तो ऑनेस्टली आज की तारीख में लोगों को सब काम छोड़ देना चाहिए और प्लास्टिक पोल्यूशन पे करना चाहिए। उसमें एम्प्लॉयमेंट भी है, पर वही हमारा एक फ्यूचर रास्ता है। पर मैं ऐसे डायरेक्टली नहीं बोल सकती, पर जो मेरे अंदर भी जो एंजाइटी है, जैसे आप लोग सब ने दिखाया चैट बॉक्स के थ्रू, वो मुझे भी यही कहता है कि सब काम छोड़ दो जीवन के, सिर्फ प्लास्टिक सॉल्यूशन में ही निकल जाओ। तो एनीवे, तो हम जाके म्युनिसिपल साइट्स पे जाके हमने वेस्ट कैरेक्टराइजेशन किया, कि टाइप्स ऑफ प्लास्टिक को आइडेंटिफाई किया, ताकि देखने के लिए कि इस तरह की सिटी में किस तरह का प्लास्टिक का ज्यादा वो आता है। टू डिटेल ऑफ इट, इंटरेस्टिंगली हम जब लीटर ट्रांजेक्ट करते हैं, उसके बाद 100 मीटर बाय 100 मीटर में, उसके अंदर भी हम 20-20 बेसिकली 20 भाग में बांट के उसके अंदर हम माइक्रो प्लास्टिक को आइडेंटिफाई करते हैं, जिसको कि हम फोटो क्वाड्रेंट बोलते हैं। These are all scientific methods to measure plastic. तो ये लैंड बेस्ड मेथड हुए। वाटर बेस्ड मेथड्स में हम माइक्रो प्लास्टिक्स भी सैम्पलिंग कर रहे हैं। टेस्ट मेथड्स जो अभी बताई अंजलि ने, FTIR वगैरह है, SEM भी यूज है। सेडिमेंट सैम्पलिंग हमने लिया है, तो अभी हरिद्वार ऋषिकेश 100 किलोमीटर के बीच में हमने करीब 20 सैंपल्स उठाए हैं। और रिवर बैंक सर्वे जो करते हैं वो फिशिंग नेट्स के लिए, तो वो भी हमने कलेक्ट किया है। अब जब कम्युनिटी पे हम बात करते हैं, तो हम एक्सपर्ट इंटरव्यू किया है हमने, करीब 26 हमने फोकस ग्रुप डिस्कशन किया है। हाउस होल्ड सर्वे करीब हमने 60 किया है। इंडस्ट्रियल सर्वे किया है। शॉप सर्वे हमने करीब 56 किया है। रेस्टोरेंट्स एंड कैफेज, क्योंकि वो टूरिस्ट एरिया है। ये मेथड्स में इसलिए स्ट्रेस कर रही हूँ कि प्लीज दौड़िए मत कोई भी सोल्यूशन लेने के लिए, उसको सिस्टमैटिकली करिए। फिर हमने पिलग्रिम्स और टूरिस्ट का भी प्रोफाइल जाना, और इससे हमको ये पता चला कि पिलग्रिम इज नॉट अ प्लास्टिक पोल्यूटर, टूरिस्ट आर मोर प्लास्टिक पोल्यूटर, बिकॉज दे गो विद एन इंटेंशन कि हमने पैसा दिया है तो हम सब करेंगे। तो हमने उनको भी बेसिकली ये किया है, सर्वे किया है। फिर हमने वर्ल्ड कैफे वर्कशॉप, जो कि एक्सपो के अंदर हमने वर्कशॉप किया और डिस्कस किया कि कैसे इसी से हमने यूथ आउटरीच एंड एजुकेशन प्रोग्राम को अपस्केल किया है। तो गंगा पे मैं फोकस करने वापस आऊं, तो गंगा पे आज की तारीख में दुनिया में सबसे ज्यादा पैसा खर्च किया गया, फिर भी गंगा दुनिया की सेकंड मोस्ट पोल्यूटेड रिवर है। तो ये हमको समझना पड़ेगा। और आपको शायद पता नहीं होगा, पर अप्रैल में ही $1 बिलियन वर्ल्ड बैंक ने फिर से अप्रूव किया है गंगा को साफ करने का। तो हम जितना भी पैसा डालें और साफ करने की कोशिश करें, अगर साफ नहीं हो रहा है तो हमको पीछे रुकना पड़ेगा, और वही रिसर्च का रोल आता है। और हमको सोचना पड़ेगा क्या हम सही कर रहे हैं, क्या हमने सही किया अब तक जितना पैसा खर्च किया। दुनिया में जितनी नदियों में पैसा खर्च हुआ है, गंगा में सबसे ज्यादा पैसा खर्च हुआ है आज की तारीख में भी। फिर भी अगर ये हाल है, तो कहीं ना कहीं हमको रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट को इम्पोर्टेंस देना पड़ेगा। तो मैंने तो प्रोजेक्ट ये मार्च में ही शुरू किया है, तो मेरे पास एक्चुअली ज्यादा फाइंडिंग्स नहीं है, क्योंकि हमने अभी एक ही फील्ड वर्क किया है। पर जनवरी से मैंने जितना प्लास्टिक के बारे में पढ़ना शुरू किया, तो मेरे लिए शॉकिंग है। मैं वाटर के बारे में जिंदगी भर पढ़ती आई हूँ 30 साल से, पर पिछले 6 महीने में मैंने जितना प्लास्टिक के बारे में पढ़ा है, मुझे सीरियसली लगता है कि पानी को मैं एक तरफ छोड़ दूं और मैं प्लास्टिक पे काम करने लगूं। तो अगर सुंदर के पास कोई प्लास्टिक पे काम है तो मुझे प्लीज बताइएगा, क्योंकि मुझे गिल्टी लग रहा है। अपने जीवन से मुझे एम्बैरेसमेंट हो रही है कि मैंने क्या किया अपने जीवन में, एक इतना ज्यादा पोल्यूशन ले आए। हम सबके शरीर के अंदर एक माइक्रोचिप प्लास्टिक तो है ही, वो बैठा हुआ है, कहीं नहीं जाएगा, हमारे साथ ही जाएगा। तो जो मैं सवाल आपसे पूछ रही थी, ये उसका जवाब है। और ये जो है, ये ग्लोबली एक्सेप्टेड है, द रेजिन आइडेंटिफिकेशन कोड बोलते हैं इसको, जिसके तहत प्लास्टिक को 7 तरीके से डिवाइड किया गया। और ये डिवीजन इज बेस्ड ऑन रिसाइक्लिंग कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स ऑफ द प्लास्टिक। देयर आर मेनी डिविजन्स जो प्लास्टिक को कैरेक्टराइज करते हैं, पर ये ग्लोबली अभी एक्सेप्ट किया जा रहा है, क्योंकि रिसाइकिल पे और सर्कुलर इकोनॉमी ऑफ प्लास्टिक पे बहुत ज्यादा फोकस है। तो किस तरह प्लास्टिक को रीयूज करें। अब आप इसमें एक इंटरेस्टिंग फैक्ट देखेंगे कि जब हम प्लास्टिक को देखते हैं और जब आप कोई भी चीज खरीदने जाते हैं, तो ये मार्क हर प्रोडक्ट में रहना है। ये WTO का अग्रीमेंट है अराउंड द वर्ल्ड। WTO मीन्स वर्ल्ड ट्रेड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का। तो आप कोई भी प्रोडक्ट खरीदते हैं, देखिए आप कंज्यूमर हैं, तो आपको सबसे पहले ये देखना पड़ेगा कि ये कौन सा प्लास्टिक टाइप है। आप तभी उस पर फोकस कर पाएंगे जब आप जानेंगे कि ये प्लास्टिक टाइप करता क्या है। तो ये एक टेबल है जो मैं आपको शेयर करूंगी बाद में, लिंक इन द चैट बॉक्स मेरे टॉक के बाद। तो आप जैसे ही कोई प्रोडक्ट खरीदने जाएंगे, आपको पता चलेगा कि इसमें जो मैं प्लास्टिक घर लेके जा रहा हूँ या जा रही हूँ, ये कितने साल लगेगा? तो यू कैन बिकम अ कॉन्शियस कंज्यूमर। सी वी कैन नॉट अवॉइड बिकमिंग अ कंज्यूमर। हमें तो रोज दाल रोटी खाना है, कुछ भी खाना है। जहां हम कर्टेल कर सकते हैं, मैं वो स्लाइड्स भी दिखाऊंगी। पर अगर हमारी जरूरत की चीजों में भी हम अपने चॉइसेस को राइट रखें, उसके लिए जरूरी है कि आप ये लेबल्स को चेक करें अपने हर प्रोडक्ट में। हर प्रोडक्ट दुनिया की जो भी बेची जाती है उसमें एक ना एक ये प्लास्टिक कोडिंग होगा, ये आपको चेक करना है। और इसमें देखना है, जैसे कि आप देखिए पीईटी जो है, पॉलीथीन टेरी बहुत डिफिकल्ट है मेरे लिए भी बोलना, बट पीईटी पे ही रुके, टेरी फ्लेट। सो इस पे अगर हम जाते हैं तो आपको दिखता है, आपको साइनेज भी यहाँ दिखाया हुआ है, डेंजर साइन आप नीचे देखेंगे मेरे माउस के साथ, कि जो रिसाइकिल हो ही नहीं सकता। बहुत समय लगता है, बहुत 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 समय लगता है। कितने डिग्री का टेम्परेचर लगता है उसको रिसाइकिल करने के लिए, आप वो भी देखिए। यहाँ पे बार दिया हुआ है, टेम्परेचर कितना लगता है उसको डिकम्पोज करने के लिए। ये तो तब जब वो इंडस्ट्री में पहुंचेगा, रिसाइकलिंग इंडस्ट्री में। अगर वो पहुंचा ही नहीं तो वो राम भरोसे है। तो जो हम बात कर रहे हैं, जो फिगर्स दे रही थी अंजलि, वो नहीं पहुंचने का है। पर जितने पहुंचते हैं, हम इंडिया में आज की तारीख में 10% भी रिसाइकल नहीं करते हैं। तो हमारा तो बहुत लंबा सफर है और बहुत एम्प्लॉयमेंट भी है इसमें। तो मतलब आपदा में अवसर जिसको कहते हैं हमारे प्रधानमंत्री, एक्चुअली यहाँ पे बहुत फ्यूचर स्कॉलरशिप भी है और फ्यूचर एम्प्लॉयमेंट भी यहाँ रहता है। एनीवे, हम नेक्स्ट उस पर मूव करते हैं। हाई डेंसिटी पॉलीथीन जो है वो हम जिसमें कि आप देखते हैं कि वाटर बॉटल्स वाले जो कड़क वाले वाटर बॉटल्स आते हैं, ये सब तो बेसिकली बहुत अच्छे से ग्राफिकली भी समझाया गया है। और उसमें कितना हम रिकवर कर पाते हैं आप वो भी देख सकते हैं। यहाँ पे जो सेकेंड रो है वो रिसाइकल परसेंटेज, रिसाइकल जो है वो कितना रिकवर हो रहा है वो कलर में दिखाया गया है। तो ये जो ग्राफ है मैं आपके साथ शेयर करूंगी, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट है। ये एलन मैकार्थर फाउंडेशन से डेवलप किया हुआ है। फिर तीसरा जो है पॉलीविनाइल क्लोराइड, सुपर नो, बट हम सब चीजों में यूज करते हैं। लो डेंसिटी पॉलीथिलीन, फिर पॉलीप्रोपिलीन, फिर पॉलीस्ट्रीन एंड अदर टाइप्स ऑफ प्लास्टिक। अब अदर टाइप्स ऑफ प्लास्टिक इज द बिगेस्ट डेविल, बिकॉज हमारा उसमें सबसे ज्यादा कंजम्पशन आता है। और उसमें क्योंकि वो मिक्स हो जाता है तो उसमें बहुत सारा मुश्किल होता है। अब आपको दो चीजें इसमें समझनी है जो मैं अपने लिए भी इंटरेस्ट में रखा मैंने। एक तो है कि जितना टेम्परेचर चाहिए वहां को उसको रिसाइकल करने के लिए, उसके भी पहले कि वो रिसाइकल प्लांट तक पहुंचना चाहिए। तो एक है टेम्परेचर देना है उसको, जब जितने पहुंचे हैं, उसके बाद द अमाउंट ऑफ वाटर रिक्वायर्ड, और उसके बाद जो माइक्रो प्लास्टिक और नैनो प्लास्टिक जनरेट होता है रिसाइकलिंग के बाद भी। आप लोग ने कई बार देखा होगा रिसाइकलिंग, काफी सारे स्टार्टअप आते हैं, बहुत प्रमोट करते हैं। मैंने इसको रखा था क्लियर आपके, वो कई सारे लोग प्रमोट करते हैं कि हमने प्लास्टिक को श्रेड करके चेयर बनाया, टेबल बनाया, ये बनाया, वो बनाया, और हम उसको अप्रिशिएट करते हैं। अप्रिशिएट करना भी चाहिए, पर हम ये भूल जाते हैं कि जैसे ही हम प्लास्टिक को श्रेड करते हैं और कुछ भी बनाते हैं तो माइक्रो प्लास्टिक और नैनो प्लास्टिक हम जनरेट करते हैं। तो ये है अनइंटेंडेड कॉन्सिक्वेंस ऑफ अ गुड एफर्ट। तो ये भी होता है। तो रिसाइकलिंग जो है वो इज नॉट अ गुड ऑप्शन, बट इट इज द ओनली ऑप्शन लेफ्ट विथ अस अनफॉर्चुनेटली, है ना। तो हमको रिसाइकल जो करना पड़ता है तो वो ऑलरेडी हमारे लिए मुश्किल का काम है। तो जैसे मैं बात करी थी डिफिकल्ट टू रिसाइकल में अदर्स, उसमें सब कुछ आ जाता है जो इन सब में नहीं आता। और अनफॉर्चुनेटली जो रिसाइकलिंग प्लांट्स है वो इन 6 को कैटेगराइज करने के बाद बाकी सबको एक साथ रख के ही रिसाइकल करते हैं। अब हरिद्वार ऋषिकेश जैसी जगह का मैं एग्जांपल दूं तो वहां पे लोकल लोग जितना प्लास्टिक जनरेट नहीं करते, टूरिस्ट ज्यादा जनरेट करते हैं। और अनफॉर्चुनेटली टूरिस्ट पॉपुलेशन इज मोर देन द लोकल पॉपुलेशन। अब यहाँ जाके लोकल अथॉरिटी की मुश्किलें आती है, क्योंकि कोई भी लोकल अथॉरिटी, चाहे वो कॉर्पोरेशन हो चाहे डेवलपमेंट अथॉरिटी हो, उसका ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल डिजाइन जो होता है वो रेसिडेंट पॉपुलेशन के हिसाब से होता है। मतलब इस सिटी में इतने लोग रजिस्टर्ड है, इतने लोगों का आधार कार्ड है, इतने लोग का रेसिडेंसी है, तो उसके हिसाब से लोकल अथॉरिटी में स्टाफ होती है। पर जिस सिटी में लोकल पॉपुलेशन से भी डबल से भी ज्यादा अगर विजिटिंग पॉपुलेशन है तो लोकल अथॉरिटी के लिए मैनेज करना बहुत मुश्किल होता है। और उसमें भी अगर विजिटर्स जो है, टूरिस्ट जो है, वो इल बिहेव्ड है टुवर्ड्स प्लास्टिक तो वो और मुश्किल हो जाता है। तो ये समझने की बात है कि हमारे बिहेवियर पे बहुत मैटर करता है। अभी मेरे ही यहाँ पे घर के बाहर जस्ट रोड पे 2 दिन पहले एक पूरा मेडिकल वैन आके पूरा डंप करके चला गया, जस्ट रोड के बाहर। क्या उनको मालूम नहीं था कि उनको डंप कहाँ करना है? अभी हमारे खुद के क्लीनर सोच रहे हैं कि हम जाएं कि नहीं जाएं, क्योंकि वो मेडिकल इक्विपमेंट है और मेडिकल वेस्ट है। तो ये सारी चीजें हमको समझनी है। चूंकि मैं रिसर्च कर रही हूँ, पर मैं ये स्लाइड्स पे ज्यादा अपना समय नहीं निकालना चाहती, बट ये जो है हमारा खुद का क्रिएटेड प्रॉब्लम है और इसको हम ट्रेजेडी ऑफ द कॉमन्स कह सकते हैं। हम इसमें से निकल नहीं पा रहे हैं। हम ये सोच रहे हैं कि मेरे अकेले करने से क्या होगा, जो कि प्रिजनर्स डिलेमा कहलाता है। हम सोच रहे हैं हम सब मिलकर जब करेंगे तब करेंगे, जो कि लॉजिक ऑफ कलेक्टिव एक्शन में आता है। हम पे करने को तैयार हैं, जो एक टूरिस्ट मेंटालिटी होती है और एक कंज्यूमर मेंटालिटी होती है, और हम एक्सेप्ट भी कर रहे हैं प्लास्टिक पोल्यूशन। तो मैं तो अभी एक्चुअली इस पे एक पेपर लिख रही हूँ, इसलिए मैं ये दिखा रही हूँ, बट इम्पॉर्टेंट है इस फिगर में देखने की कि दुनिया का हर वेस्ट, चाहे वो ऑर्गेनिक हो, चाहे प्लास्टिक हो, चाहे कुछ भी हो, इट एंड्स अप इनटू द वाटर. There is no other place where the waste will go. Either they will get into the sediment of soil, which we are still not thinking, by the way. Soil pollution is the least studied thing in the world, and we don't realize that unless and until we work on soil pollution, water pollution पे काम करना incomplete है, क्योंकि water की cleanliness depends on the cleanliness of the soil. Unfortunately, हम soil को land बोलते हैं अपने देश में, दुनिया में, और उसको हम exploit करते हैं. But anyway, I come back to focus on water pollution because ये मेरा एरिया है और हम गंगा पे काम कर रहे हैं. Every waste everything you buy in the world and you think today that it is not of my use, eventually either वो रिसाइकल हुआ हो चाहे नहीं रिसाइकल हुआ. आपको ये भी समझना पड़ेगा रिसाइकल का बाई प्रोडक्ट भी वेस्ट है और वो बहुत गहरा वेस्ट है, तो वो भी इट एंड्स अप इन द वाटर. तो ये हमारे लिए बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है. अब हमको क्यों करना चाहिए, अभी ऑलरेडी अंजलि ने भी समझाया कि विद सो मच ऑफ वेस्ट गोइंग इनटू द वाटर बॉडी, इट इज द ओशन डेब्री इज नियरली 80% जो डेब्री है ओशन में वेस्ट है, इट इज प्लास्टिक वेस्ट. तो इट्स नॉट देन something which we should not take very seriously. Of all the waste in the ocean, 80% constitutes of plastic waste. Now what it is doing, अगर ह्यूमन को चेंज करना है तो सबसे जरूरी है समझना ह्यूमन को क्या हो रहा है, क्योंकि एज ह्यूमंस वी हैव बीन ऑलवेज सेल्फिश. वी डोंट केयर व्हाट इज हैपनिंग टू अदर क्रीचर्स, व्हाट इज हैपनिंग टू एनवायरनमेंट एंड ऑल. तो मैं आपको सिंपली एक चीज बताना चाहती हूँ कि ह्यूमंस के साथ क्या हो रहा है. इसमें इनफर्टिलिटी बढ़ी है, ओबेसिटी, डायबिटीज, प्रोस्टेट एंड ब्रेस्ट कैंसर का बहुत, जैसे अंजलि ने भी बताया, थायराइड, ये दीज आर ऑल प्रूवन फैक्ट्स. जैसे अंजलि ने और आगे भी जाके बताया, मदर्स मिल्क में भी आ रहा है, कार्डियोवेस्कुलर डिजीज हो रहे हैं, स्ट्रोक हो रहे हैं, चोक हो जाता है नली हमारे. तो ये जो चीजें हैं यही शायद ह्यूमंस के बिहेवियरल चेंज. तो मैं ये सजेस्ट करूंगी सबको जो भी प्लास्टिक पे काम करे, ह्यूमन हेल्थ को ट्रम्पेट किया जाए कि इसको ही सबसे ज्यादा बड़ा इशू बनाया जाए, क्योंकि ह्यूमंस तभी चेंज होंगे. और कोरोना एक इसका बहुत सिंपल एग्जांपल है. हम कितनी जल्दी चेंज हो गए, ओवरनाइट चेंज हो गए, जैसे ही पता चला कि हमारी जान को हानि है. तो जो ह्यूमन प्रॉब्लम्स आ रही हैं, इन चीजों को, इट कैन बी अ गुड एंट्री पॉइंट. अगेन फ्रॉम माय रिसर्च आई कैन से दैट इट इज द बेस्ट एंट्री पॉइंट टू रियली टैकल प्लास्टिक पोल्यूशन. नहीं तो इंसान नहीं बदलेंगे जब तक हम उनको बताएंगे नहीं कि ये इसलिए हो रहा है और आपको ये हो सकता है, वो नहीं होगा. कोई भी प्लास्टिक बनाने में मोर देन 10,500 केमिकल एडिटिव्स यूज किए जाते हैं, तो आप उसका ऑलरेडी समझ सकते हैं कि प्लास्टिक कितना रिस्की होता है. तो हम क्या कर सकते हैं, तो जैसा कि मैंने बोला कि हर चीज जाके पानी में जाती है और 80% हमारे मरीन लाइफ, एक्वेटिक लाइफ तो हार्म करती है. हमारा ग्राउंड वाटर भी कंटेमिनेट हो रहा है, हम क्योंकि हमारा सॉइल कंटेमिनेटेड है. तो जो लीचेट है और जो पानी जाता है, रेन वाटर पर्कुलेट होता है. हम सब लोग रेन वाटर पर्कुलेशन करते हैं, हार्वेस्टिंग करते हैं. हम ये नहीं समझ रहे हैं कि अगर सॉइल पोल्यूटेड है तो वाटर भी ग्राउंड में पोल्यूटेड जाएगा. तो ये हमको समझना पड़ेगा, हमारा रिलेशनशिप एंड relationship with the planet. We are the only creatures on the planet who pollute the planet and no other creatures pollute the planet. ये हमको समझना पड़ेगा. ये सब हमारे बिहेवियर है. आपको जान के बहुत आश्चर्य होगा, मैं अपना वाटर सेक्टर ला रही हूँ यहाँ. इंडिया की हम लोग ने 50% से ज्यादा वाटर बॉडीज लूज किया है और वो हमने डंप कर करके लूज किया है. हम वाटर बॉडी के किनारे, आप अपने घर के पास भी देख सकते हैं, लेक के किनारे सब कचरा डालते हैं. धीरे 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 कचरा डालते डालते 40 साल 30 साल में वो भर जाता है. Ahmedabad has lost more than half of its lakes. Even the entire country has lost according to government standards. हमने लूज कैसे किया? हमने कचरा भर भर के एक पानी के बॉडी को, वाटर बॉडी को हमने लैंड बना दिया। अब लैंड बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, इसलिए वो अब एक मोडस ऑपरेंडी हो गया है लोकल अथॉरिटीज का भी, इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर का भी, और इवन कंसल्टेंट्स का भी, कि तालाब के किनारे किनारे, नदी के किनारे भरते जाओ, जमीन बन जाएगी, 10-20 साल में जमीन बेच देंगे। तो हमने ये भी हश्र किया है। तो खाली प्लास्टिक वेस्ट को हम उतने धीरे से ना देखें। प्लास्टिक वेस्ट का बहुत बड़ा रेपरकशन है। जो आज की तारीख में वाटर क्राइसिस है वो कहीं ना कहीं पोल्यूशन से भी रिलेटेड है, क्योंकि वाटर तो इनफ है पर क्राइसिस बहुत ज्यादा है। ये सारी कहानी आती है मेरे और आपके फैशन से। जैसा कि अंजलि ने भी बोला कि क्लोथ्स एंड हमारी एक्सेसरीज से सबसे ज्यादा होता है, खाने पीने से भी होता है, पर खाना तो हम बंद नहीं कर सकते। क्या खाएंगे उस पर हमको बहुत कंट्रोल करना चाहिए। व्हीट, राइस, मिलेट, हमको सबको मालूम होना चाहिए कितना पानी लेता है। एक कप कॉफी इटसेल्फ टेक्स 200 लीटर्स ऑफ वाटर। अब वो वाटर में भी कंटामिनेशन। तो अगर हम ये नहीं सोचेंगे कि हम कितना पानी निकाल रहे हैं और कैसे यूज कर रहे हैं, ये जो सारा हमारा फ्रेश वाटर का जो ये है प्रॉब्लम है, वो आज की तारीख में पोल्यूशन का प्रॉब्लम है, हमारे लाइफस्टाइल का प्रॉब्लम है। और यहाँ जाके हमको बहुत गहरा सोचना पड़ेगा कि इवेंचुअली वो इकोनॉमी को भी प्रॉब्लम दे रहा है, एम्प्लॉयमेंट को भी प्रॉब्लम दे रहा है। तो अगर हम बात करते हैं कि हमें करना क्या चाहिए, तो अंजलि ने भी कुछ चीजें बताई, उन्होंने शुरू किया रिफ्यूज से। मैं उसके एक स्टेप और आगे लेना चाहूंगी, आप लोग को बताऊंगी कि रीथिंक करिए अपनी चॉइसेस। क्योंकि ना रिफ्यूज करके आप 1-2 बार करेंगे, दोबारा आपको मतलब थोड़ा सा क्रेविंग होगा। तो हमको मालूम होना चाहिए टाइप्स ऑफ प्लास्टिक, कितना टाइम लेता है रिसाइकिल होने में, और हमको ये भी मालूम होना चाहिए कि रिसाइकिल इज नॉट द बेस्ट ऑप्शन। रिसाइकिल शुड बी अवॉइडेड ऑल्सो, कि अगर वो तभी होगा जब हम अपने लाइफस्टाइल को रीथिंक करेंगे, हम अपने आप को रीपर्पस करेंगे। और प्लास्टिक रिसाइकिल से जो माइक्रो प्लास्टिक और नैनो प्लास्टिक होता है उसकी भी हमको अवेयरनेस होनी चाहिए। हमारा कंजम्पशन स्टाइल, जितना पैकेज्ड मटेरियल खरीदेंगे, मैं पर्सनली जानती हूँ मेरे बचपन में ये सब कुछ नहीं था, मैं 50 अबव हूँ, तो ये सब चीजें अभी आई हैं। हम लोग पत्तल में, हमको स्कूल के बाहर पत्तल में हमको छोटा सा जामुन, बेर, चाट हमको पत्तल में खिलाया जाता था। आज की तारीख में हर चीज पैकेट में मिलता है, 5 रुपए में, 2 रुपए में, 10 रुपए में, और दे हैव बिकम द डिजास्टर। एक मुझे स्टडी याद है 10 साल पहले का, अहमदाबाद का वाटर सप्लाई में जो चोकिंग आता है उसमें 90% चोक इज बिकॉज ऑफ द माइक्रोप्लास्टिक ऑफ सिगरेट्स एंड पाउचेस, जो वो गुटखा खाते हैं। तो आप समझ सकते हैं कि खाली ह्यूमन बॉडी का बात नहीं, सिटी के फंक्शनिंग में भी प्रॉब्लम पड़ता है इसको, है ना। तो हमको ये समझना पड़ेगा कि उसका डायरेक्ट लिंक है वाटर से और सॉइल से। तो ये जो इनविजिबल है ना प्लास्टिक की चीजें, हम कोई भी चीज खरीदे दुनिया में उसमें प्लास्टिक आज की तारीख में है, चाहे वो सब्जी हो, चाहे दूध हो, चाहे कुछ भी हो। तो क्या हम कम कैसे कर सकते हैं? हमको अपनी भूख, हंगर फॉर ग्रीड, हमको कम करनी पड़ेगी, और यही एक तरीका है। बिल्डिंग इंडस्ट्री में सबसे ज्यादा प्लास्टिक ये होता है, प्रोड्यूस होता है। देन आवर ओन लाइफस्टाइल, हमारे वार्डरोब में जाके देखिए, हर कपड़े में एक प्लास्टिक आता ही है, पैकेजिंग में, हर कपड़े में भी प्लास्टिक फाइबर। तो आज की तारीख में तो रिसाइकल वगैरह सब हो रहा है। हम छोटे छोटे एफर्ट्स कर सकते हैं, जैसे मैं अपने ही एफर्ट्स में से आपको शेयर कर रही हूँ 2 एग्जाम्पल। तो हम क्लीन कर सकते हैं वाटर बॉडीज, हम लोग, मैं फोकस रखती हूँ वाटर के कारण, तो हम ये क्लीन कर रहे हैं। ये क्यों जरूरी है? ये जरूरी इसलिए क्योंकि मैं और आप समझें कि ये जो क्रिएट किया गया है, हम बहुत खुशी से बोलते हैं प्रिजनर्स डिलेमा में कि मैंने नहीं किया, ये कचरा मैंने नहीं डाला, पर मैं अलग नहीं हूँ आपसे। वी आर ऑल वन बीइंग। The water that flows inside you also flows inside me and also flows in this pond. तो हम जब ऐसे इनिशिएटिव्स करते हैं तो हमारा पूरा फोकस रहता है कि हम समझें कि हम अपने घर में प्लास्टिक कम प्रोड्यूस करें, क्योंकि इवेंचुअली एवरीथिंग एंड्स अप इनटू द वाटर बॉडीज, वेदर वी हैव डन इट और नॉट, इनडायरेक्टली डायरेक्टली वो वहीं जाता है। तो ये सारे एफर्ट्स इंपॉर्टेंट है पर इनफ नहीं है, मैं ये कहना चाहूंगी, क्योंकि इनको हम रिसाइकलिंग प्लांट्स में पहुंचा तो देंगे, पर क्या इस इनिशिएटिव के बाद सारे यूथ अपना कंजम्पशन, अपना लाइफस्टाइल में एटलीस्ट 50% चेंज ला पाएंगे 1 साल में? देखिए, आपके पास अगर 10 कपड़ा है ना, मैं सच्ची बताऊं, और 4 जूते हैं, तो आपका पूरा जीवन चल सकता है जब तक एक फटे नहीं। जब एक फटे तो आप दूसरा ले लीजिएगा। ये जो बिहेवियरल चेंज है हम चाहते हैं अपने बेसिकली इनसे सर्वे वगैरह से लाएं। ये छोटे छोटे एफर्ट्स अब हमने शुरू किया है। गंगा के बाद हम पैन इंडिया भी हम चाह रहे हैं कि यूथ आउटरीच एंड एजुकेशन प्रोग्राम, जैसे ये दिखा रही हूँ मैं, हम करना चाह रहे हैं। और गंगा प्रोजेक्ट तो मेरा रिसर्च प्रोजेक्ट चलेगा ही अंटिल दिसंबर, तो वो मैं करती रहूंगी। मैं यहाँ पे रुकती हूँ और जो भी सवाल है वो लोगों से लेती हूँ। स्लाइड्स मेरे और भी हैं, क्योंकि ऊपर वो रिसर्च में डीप में चला जाएगा, मुझे मेरे ख्याल से वहां जाने की जरूरत नहीं है। जी, ओवर टू यू सुंदर एंड शर्मिला।
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for sharing your findings and your experience in the Ganga River pollution thing, and also as a whole, जो भी आपने यहाँ पे share किया. I personally got to learn a lot of things from you today, and I'm sure our participants also share the same feeling with me. And अभी I'll request the other participants here also. अगर आपके मन में कोई भी questions है, तो please आप chat box में
प्लीज ये क्वेश्चन मैं जस्ट 2 स्लाइड्स और शेयर कर देती हूँ, बिकॉज इट इज नॉट नाइस नॉट टू एक्नॉलेज माय टीम। सो ये मैं बता रही थी कि शेयर आप रिसाइकल, सॉरी आई जस्ट फॉरगॉट दैट आई हैव 2 मोर स्लाइड्स। ये जो रिसाइकिल करने के बाद ये जो बचता है ना, वो रिसाइकलिंग वाले भी बाहर ही फेंकते हैं, तो यहाँ जाके प्रॉब्लम है रिसाइकल में भी, तो ये आपको समझना पड़ेगा। तो अप्रिशिएट तो हमको करना है जो लोग रिसाइकिल कर रहे हैं, पर हमको उस स्टेज तक जाना नहीं है, इसलिए मैंने रीथिंकिंग पे ज्यादा जोर दिया। तो मैं जस्ट अपना ये स्लाइड रख के अपने टीम मेंबर्स को थैंक्स बोलना चाहती हूँ, क्विकली नाम लेके। अनुभूति शेखर, मोनिका तिवारी, प्रशाखा मोइत्रा, हर्षिता सहगल, जैस्मीन कौर, कीर्ति मखीजा, प्रियंका मुखर्जी, कल्पना पटेल, मोक्षा मेहता, मोनामी भट्टाचार्य, प्रीति चौहान, and then finally Garima Punya. So thank you so much all of you. Sorry for this.
Thanks, ma'am, and thanks to your team also for sharing your valuable inputs with us. I'll again request the participants here, अगर आपके मन में कोई भी questions है जो भी मैम ने इधर present किया है, if you have any questions, any thoughts, please feel free to write down in the chat box. Ma'am is here for some time here, and she'll take the questions. Please go ahead with the questions.
Shall I read from the chat box?
Yes, ma'am, you can go ahead.
Acha, I have to read from the chat box. No, I didn't realize that. Sorry. Sorry. Hey, let me just take the chat box. I see quite a bit. Share your mail ID. Okay, I will share. Sorry, I started looking from the down. I don't know where to. Sharmila, can you help me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Fashion
sure.
and convenience are the 2 main starting points. Sundar, okay, I take that, and then Sharmila, you can just help me with the questions.
Sure, ma'am. Yes.
Yes, I think fashion, we can call it overall as lifestyle, you know, that includes fashion and convenience. And I think we have to change from there, but how do we change? That is my point. And that's where I was saying a good entry point can be, you know, scaring people with the health impacts. Then and then only people are going to change. Because if we say people to reduce their fashion, it's not a good, you know, it's not a good motivation. But just like Corona, overnight, the most highly educated person and the most uneducated person of the country could understand what is COVID and how to protect oneself. You know, so I will suggest that epidemics or pandemics or any kind of diseases, like I have started using water epidemics as my tool to tell people why they should conserve water or why they should not pollute water. Similarly, we have to this is also part of my research work where I'm doing learning. I would like to really focus on plastic epidemics. This is an area of research which has not been trumpeted. So if people like Sundar or me or like Anjali or all the people who are working in the plastic sector, if we can really do a chorus on plastic epidemics, just like water epidemics is now growing, we have to really do that. I don't know, I'm not an expert in plastic epidemics, but because we are working, we can trumpet that, and then we can get on board, you know, health experts and all. I know water epidemics is also not trumpeted in the world, because only poor people suffer from it, you know, and that all otherwise corona se bada hai water epidemics duniya mein. There are more than 50% diseases and deaths in the world are because of water pollution. And pollution is, by the way, again 80% constituted by plastic pollution. So we have to make these links and get into the health sector. We cannot directly change people's lifestyle. We have to make people change their lifestyle by themselves. क्योंकि कैसे बोलेंगे बच्चे को कि प्लास्टिक का खिलौना नहीं खरीद, मैंने बचपन में प्लास्टिक का कोई खिलौना नहीं खेला, आज पेरेंट्स खुद खरीद के देते हैं अपने बच्चों को, विदाउट नोइंग कि जब बच्चा उसको चबाता है तो कितना हार्मफुल है उसके लिए, तो ये हमको समझना पड़ेगा और ये हमारा मेरे ख्याल से एंट्री पॉइंट होना पड़ेगा. Yes, we have to make awareness and it shall be mission mode. Yes, it has to be mission mode, Masood Ahmed. And we have started a very small steps after the Ganga project started. So we are doing youth outreach and education program. If anyone is interested, you are very welcome to reach out to us. We have developed a format and we are going to map across the country how many people sign up. So we are taking pledge from people that they are not going to understand the plastic types, because this is important, and at the same time they are going to rethink about their use and change their lifestyle. So we have developed a small package of doing youth outreach and education program. Right now we have only managed to conduct at 6 places apart from doing at Ganga. So we would definitely like to collaborate with as many institution and organization or schools or individuals who would like to do in their own society. We provide you all the package material from our end. We will highlight you, and at some places we are also getting Doordarshan people to really highlight your effort. So this is also win-win. You would like to know that your efforts are acknowledged. So please get in touch with us, and then I'm very happy to share that little packet which has 3-4 letters which you have to share with organization or societies, and it has a Google form. So after you have conducted the program, what are you going to fill it up, and that Google form we translate it into a dynamic map. So later on we will know how many places we have conducted the outreach program. So after that, maybe after 2-3 years, we can do the impact assessment of the project. So this is like a project in inception, but I'm very happy to share. There is nothing like, as Sundar rightly mentioned, it's a shared problem and we have to solve its shared efforts. Yes. Where should I take the question from? I don't know where Anjali stopped.
Yes, ma'am. I think a lot of questions. One question from Nupur Rai here is tea bags contain microplastic?
Yes. Tea bag ka jali itself is a problem. So we can't do much about it. See, when plastics can reach the body of animals, and we can see presence of plastic in also milk, I think we have to be really knowing that it is everywhere. If it can reach mother's milk and cow milk or all other animals' milk, and rightly mentioned by Anjali also, that many a times these animals are dying because their tummy is full, because it is full with plastic and they are not eating and they die out of hunger. So all those plastic का अंदर body के अंदर भी लीचेट होता है और उसमें से milk generate होता है. तो going vegan, one may think, okay, milk में plastic है तो मैं vegan हो जाऊं, और इधर मैं plastic consume करते रहूं, तो that is also not the way, Unless and until we start thinking about each other, we are not really going anywhere and solving any problem. It's not my problem, and I don't have the solution alone. Having said that, the problem is created by us. We have to find a solution together, and there are solutions. And solution is not related to industry. Solution is not related to recycling. Solution, the first solution is behavioral change. That is where the moral comes into picture. And also, I get very spiritual and emotional about these things, that am I thinking enough? If I was even selfish enough about myself, I will not do things which harm me. If I am not doing something which is harming me, I can then think of doing something which is not harming others. So guys, it is okay, thoda selfish hone se koi baat nahi hai, but selfish for the good cause is important. But when there is a tendency, human tendency है कि हम लोग, अरे थोड़ी सी तो जीवन है, बहुत कुछ कर लो, सब कुछ कर लो, ये भी कर लो, वो भी कर लो. that is need. And I want to bring to your notice Gandhi's lines. There is enough for everybody's need, but it is never going to be enough for greed. And unfortunately, our media, our lifestyle has pushed us to the stage of greed. Can we return from greed? And only हेल्थ विल मेक यू रिटर्न. कैसे जैसे बीमार पड़ते हैं तो डॉक्टर्स पहले ही लिख देते हैं ये नहीं करना है, वो नहीं करना है, ये नहीं करना है, वो नहीं करना है. सो इफ वी कैन स्टार्ट अ मूवमेंट ऑन प्लास्टिक एपिडेमिक्स, प्लास्टिक का प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करने के लिए हमको वही रास्ता मिलेगा. सॉरी बट लोगों को डराना, रिलीजन ने भी यही किया है बाय द वे इन द पास्ट, लोगों को डरा के ही रिलीजन फॉलो करवाया है. तो क्यों हम एपिडेमिक्स को नहीं बना सकते अपना नया रिलीजन, और उसको हम क्यों नहीं लोगों को डराएं. थोड़ा सा डरना बहुत जरूरी है, किसी से तो डरना जरूरी है. जिस समाज में हम लॉ से नहीं डरते, दूसरे स्पीशीज से नहीं डरते, दूसरे स्पीशीज को मानते ही नहीं है उनका एग्जिस्टेंस, तो कैसे लोगों को थोड़ा सा वो डर फैक्टर लाएं. मुझे लगता है ये मेरा पर्सनल सोच है, इतना सालों से काम करके. मैं अपना मेल आईडी और डिटेल्स यही शेयर करती हूँ, क्योंकि मैं बोल रही हूँ तो मैं एक्चुअली चैट बॉक्स यूज नहीं कर पा रही. Impacts of plastic in soil areas and snow areas may be explained. Yes, very good question actually. Soil में जो आप देख रहे हैं उसके साथ soil के साथ रह जा रहा है, तो आपको ये भी समझना पड़ेगा कि soil में decomposition time बढ़ जाता है प्लास्टिक का, तो ये बहुत बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है. स्नो में भी डिकम्पोजिशन टाइम प्लास्टिक का बढ़ जाता है. तो जो हम चार्ट देख रहे थे प्लास्टिक के रिसाइकलिंग टाइम का, वो तब है जब वो प्लास्टिक इंडस्ट्री में गया है रिसाइकल होने के लिए. तो आप उसमें मल्टीप्लाइड में 10 या 100 तो लगा ही दीजिए जब वो सॉइल में है और स्नो में. आप समझे मेरी बात नागराजन जी? तो ये भी डू आई हैव टू से इन इंग्लिश बिकॉज आई सी नागराजन, सो
Yes, ma'am. There is a mixed set of audience actually. Can
so I'm also trying to be a little bit English, you know. So तो मेरे पास कोई डायरेक्ट फिगर नहीं है, बट हमको सिंपली समझना पड़ेगा जो सब चीजें हम लोग स्टैंडर्ड रिसर्च और टूल्स दिखाते हैं, ये बहुत एक यूटोपियन एंड आइडियलिस्टिक सिचुएशन, ठीक है ना. तो इससे भी ज्यादा खराब सिचुएशन है अगर हम कर नहीं रहे हैं. जैसा कि मैंने बोला, ये तभी लागू होता है जब प्लास्टिक हमारे इंडस्ट्री में, फैक्ट्री में, रिसाइकलिंग फैक्ट्री में पहुंचती है. पर अगर पहुंच ही नहीं रही है तो वो और ज्यादा टाइम लगाएगी. तो इन दैट वे पानी में एक्चुअली शायद प्लास्टिक सबसे जल्दी रिसाइकल होता होगा एज कंपेयर टू सॉइल एंड स्नो, क्योंकि वहां डेब्री बन के रह जाता है. बट इसका दूसरा चीज ये देखना है कि अगर वो प्लास्टिक सॉइल में रह जाती है और स्नो में रह जाती है तो वो लिचेट होकर इवेंचुअली पानी को भी पॉल्यूट करती है. तो ये हमको समझना पड़ेगा. श्वेता झुंझुनवाला का एक क्वेश्चन है, उन्होंने पहले भी पूछा है. सॉरी श्वेता, let me just find out your question, or why don't you unmute yourself and ask? Yes. Also increase taxes and okay, let me just get the right early question from you. Yes, I have it.
Yes, ma'am. I think Sweta ka question hai, how do we stop production of single-use plastic?
Okay, very good question, and this is, I would love to take this question because it is behavioral question, and every time I meet people and they say कि प्रोडक्शन तो हो रहा है तो हम तो यूज करेंगे. प्लीज वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड द इकोनॉमिक बिहेवियर ऑफ द सोसाइटी. दिस होल गेम ऑफ सप्लाई एंड डिमांड, where should it start and where should it stop? So once we say like this that production has to stop, we are in a prisoner's dilemma state. So being a theorist, I would like to bring that aspect here. So I would like, when I'm talking about behavioral change, we have to talk about, you know, if I stop demanding, why would they supply? Why do we want to pass the buck to them? You know, so this is where, this is no time now to really point fingers to others. We have to start from us. If I don't buy plastic packaging material, okay, I will still think कि मेरे अकेले करने से क्या होगा, जो कि अगेन प्रिजनर्स डिलेमा है बाय द वे, कि मेरे अकेले ठीक करने से क्या होगा, सब तो गलत कर रहे हैं. ये वी आर ऑलवेज ट्रैप्ड इन दिस. मार्कर ऑल्सन का है ये थ्योरी, प्रिजनर्स डिलेमा का. प्लीज रीड दिस. It's a very important theory to understand our behavior. So I will not say that it should not stop. Yes, plastic production should stop. But let me tell you, last year I was reading an article where Ambanis have studied this, and they have found out that India is underusing plastic and they want to increase it by 7 to 10 times of use. So you can imagine how our cities and how our roads and how our roadside parks, rivers, lakes are going to be if we increase it by 7 to 8 times or 10 times. And we are in one of the countries which uses less. But I think what psychological impact I have seen amongst us is that we don't like plastic lying on the roadside, parks and all. If they are not visible, trust me, 90% of us will be very happy कि हाँ हमारा city सुंदर है, because we have the impression of Europe and America to be clean cities. तो out of sight, out of mind होने से प्लास्टिक का प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व नहीं होगा. Even if we do very good collection, very good segregation, I am not so optimistic to solve plastic pollution. Plastic pollution has to be only solved the moment I decide to use it less, lesser, and least. And so production has not been stopped, and that is related to economy, to be honest, unfortunately. You know, when plastic came, do you know the history of plastic? When plastic came, it was actually to make things more durable, and it was a sustainable product produced. That something will be durable for a long time, and that is where it will not pollute the planet so much. And that was the conceptual idea of production of plastic. And from there, it has reached to a stage where it is now becoming a havoc. A simple example, जैसे सबको मीठा पसंद होता है, कितना मीठा खाएंगे, डायबिटीज हो जाएगा ना. प्लास्टिक का भी हम डायबिटिक स्टेज के पार हो गए हैं. So plastic is not bad that way. How much plastic, what kind of plastic, how to use the plastic, where to dispose the plastic, these are important things. If you don't use plastic, what is the alternative? That also we have to think. तो आप जैसे हमारे पहले पीवीसी पाइप्स जैसे अब लगने लगे हैं पिछले 30-40 साल में, उसके पहले तो पीवीसी पाइप्स नहीं होते थे, मेटल पाइप्स होते थे घरों में लगने के लिए. तो कहीं ना कहीं हमको एक रैशनल डिसीजन लेना पड़ेगा. हम इमोशनल होना जरूरी है, पर हम क्या प्रोडक्शन करना है क्या नहीं करना है ये हमको बहुत सीरियसली सोचना पड़ेगा. तो आप अपने अपने सिटीज में एक काम करिए ना, अपने लोकल अथॉरिटी से पूछिए उनको प्लास्टिक के टाइप्स मालूम है क्या. अपने इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट से ही पूछिए अपने सिटी के, छोटा सा सर्वे रन कीजिए मेरी तरफ से और हमको बताइए आपने क्या पाया. जब तक लोगों को इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं होगी कि ये नहीं करना चाहिए. सिंगल यूज प्लास्टिक लास्ट ईयर जुलाई में प्रधानमंत्री ने बोला बंद करेंगे, बंद तो नहीं हुआ. हम तो झगड़ते हैं अपने सब्जी वालों से, अपने पड़ोसी से, अपने जो भी हमारे सामने दिखता है, वो रास्ता नहीं है. हमको थिंकिंग करना पड़ेगा. टीवी में खड़े होके जब बड़े बड़े सेलिब्रिटीज प्लास्टिक प्रोडक्ट्स को प्रमोट करेंगे तो उनको भी सिखाना पड़ेगा. तो एक्चुअली प्लास्टिक एजुकेशन इज रिक्वायर्ड फॉर द एजुकेटेड, क्योंकि गरीब तो फिर भी कम से कम यूज कर रहा है. ऑल्सो इंक्रीज टैक्सेस एंड रिड्यूस सब्सिडीज. आई विल अग्री विथ यू टू बी ऑनेस्ट, बट please understand, increasing tax on any good eventually leads to increasing cost of the consumer. So these are good tools to start working on, but probably they may not lead us to the right solution. The right solution starts from home. Charity begins at home, and change also has to start from home. And if we can really bring some change in my life and not thinking कि मेरे बदलने से दुनिया नहीं बदलेगी. Trust me, being a governance scholar for 25 years and plus, मेरे बदलने से ही दुनिया बदलेगी. ये समझना पड़ेगा. Again, I would love to quote Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world. Why do you want others to change first and then you will change? Why wait for others? Just we have to try to change ourselves. How to discharge milk pouch of Amul and others. I think it's high plastic material. Why are we not questioning Amul? Or not, for that matter, not Amul alone, but all milk products. Do you read that milk products and egg crates? बहुत छोटा छोटा लिखा रहता है कि you can return and there is a return fee. None of the shopkeepers promote it. I fight with my shopkeeper and actually I return them. I don't buy milk packet, but I return my egg crates and I take the money also. पहले 50 पैसे मिलते थे, आज की तारीख में 1 रुपया मिलता है एक 12 अंडे का क्रेट का. So we have to push them, push the people. We can suggest our local grocery people whom we know for years, which I'm trying, I have not succeeded, कि वो कंटेनर्स रखे पैकेजेस रखने के लिए, प्लास्टिक पैकेजिंग रखने, क्योंकि उनके यहाँ से डिस्पोजल इजी है. तो मैं तो पर्सनली फेवर्ड में ही नहीं हूँ कि इतने बड़े बड़े मिल्क इंडस्ट्री होना चाहिए. तो मैं व्हाइट रिवॉल्यूशन को रिस्पेक्ट नहीं करती. तो क्योंकि हमारा जो लोकल भैया दूध लेके आता था उसमें कोई प्लास्टिक लाने का स्कोप नहीं था. कैन यू चेंज योर लाइफस्टाइल? बिकॉज दैट मिल्क इज इक्वली प्योर, बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली कॉर्पोरेटाइजेशन ने हमको बोला कि हम उसको पास्चराइज करेंगे, ये करेंगे, वो करेंगे, और हमको वही दूध बेसिकली ज्यादा महंगा और प्लास्टिक के साथ बेचने लगे. So we have to really change these aspects. Nagarajan again has government and companies concentrated more on economic benefits, yes, but not on environmental loss. Ways to renew the land and water may be explained. I think that's a long way to go, but I am strong believer that we have to really do some changes at our end. And Sunita Sapur very much like the way she has written. I really love you, Sunita. I pledge here that I minimize the use of plastic. That's a very good beginning, and that's how it has to be. And I see more people are signing up for that pledge. But at the same, Suman Jita, but at the same time, the alternatives are expensive. Trust me, they are not. Because if you reduce your consumption, the alternatives become come at the same price. So it's not about, plastic or its alternative. It is about how I live. How we live. We survived Corona, most of us, and God's grace, those families who lost their family members, so condolence to them. But those who survived, we also survived it minimum. You know that those time, if you have calculated how much it costs you to live, you may have realized it's in India today. It doesn't even cost you 100 rupees to live every day. So you have to start realizing these things. How much money do I need? How much more do I need? We survived. All we need is good water supply. So thanks to our local authority, good air and good family members. You know, we did not require more clothes. We did not require more gadi, more juta, nothing. We did not require those things. So you have to go back to those basic understanding of living. We were enjoying family reunion like never before during Corona. So look at those sides of lifestyle. Those are equally important. It is only the media and consumeristic or capitalistic lifestyle which has told us that if you buy, you are happier. So I'm not against economy, but there can be alternate economy. मैं वो part छेड़ना नहीं चाहती, पर de-development एक movement है दुनिया में चल रहा है, जिसमें भी economy है. तो जो younger generation आज है ना, मैं आपको बता दूं थोड़ा सा मेरे उस research में से लाके, आप लोग का जीवन चीजों को तोड़ने में जाएगा जो हमने बनाया है मेरी जनरेशन में, जो हमने बिगाड़ा है ना, आप उसको संवारोगे बैठ के और एम्प्लॉयमेंट उसी में आएगा. तो अगर आप लाइफस्टाइल चेंज करते हैं, ऑल्टरनेट्स लाते हैं, तो उसमें भी आपको एम्प्लॉयमेंट भी मिलेगा और आपका खर्चा भी कम होगा. तो इकोनॉमी जो हमारे को ब्रेन वॉश किया गया है कि चीजें खरीद के ही इकोनॉमी रन होगी, ऐसा नहीं है. चीजों को एक तालाब को बचाने में, एक जमीन को साफ रखने में भी खर्चा होता है, वो भी इकोनॉमी है. जितना कि उस जमीन को बिगाड़ने में खर्च होता है, थोड़ा कम खर्चा होता है. तालाब को संवारने में, तालाब को बिगाड़ने में ज्यादा खर्च होता है. मैं बता दूं आपको, मतलब डंप करते हैं जो हम वेस्ट, या हम डेवलप करते हैं. तो ये जो इकोनॉमिक्स से हमको समझना पड़ेगा, क्यों बनना है हमको 5 ट्रिलियन और 5 बिलियन इकोनॉमी. मुझे आप समझाइए ना, क्यों बनना है भारत को 30 ट्रिलियन इकोनॉमी. लास्ट ईयर अडानी जी ने बताया था, आपने तो देखा उसके बाद हमको देश में क्या हो रहा है, जीडीपी. और ये क्यों बनना है, ये सवाल हमको अपने आप से पूछना है. मुझे क्यों कमाना है 3 लाख रुपए पर महीने सैलरी, जब मेरा काम 5,000 रुपए में महीने में होता है. ये सारे मॉरल क्वेश्चंस हैं. और प्लास्टिक एपिडेमिक्स पे काम करने जाएंगे तो ये मॉरल क्वेश्चन आपके पास आएगा ही. जब आप बीमार पड़ते हैं तो आपको ज्यादा खिचड़ी और घी खाने बोला जाता है, तब नहीं बोला जाता है कि आप फला मैकडोनल्ड का जाके बर्गर खाइए और ये खाइए और वो खाइए और चीज खाइए और ऐसा खाइए वैसा खाइए. सो नो ऑफेंस टू एनी ब्रांड, बट हम बदलते हैं ना, तो हमको बदलना पड़ेगा. क्या आप बीमार होके बदलना चाहते हैं कि आप अपने आप बदलना चाहते हैं? बीमार होके बदलने को हम क्योर अप्रोच बोलते हैं. आप अपने आप को बदले ताकि हमको बीमार ना पड़ना पड़े, उसको हम प्रिवेंटिव अप्रोच बोलते हैं. तो प्लास्टिक एपिडेमिक्स में हमको प्रिवेंटिव अप्रोच का जरूरत है, जो हम अभी ट्राई नहीं कर रहे हैं. सो हाउ अबाउट पाउचेस फॉर शैम्पू एक्सेट्रा. डिजास्टर, मैंने आपको बताया 10 साल पहले मैं कॉर्पोरेशन अहमदाबाद का स्टडी में बताया, 90% चोक इज आउट ऑफ द स्मॉल पाउचेस, गुटखा पाउचेस और उसका जो ट्रायंगल कट जाता है, और सिगरेट बट्स. 90% of the water supply drainage choke is because of the small pouches. You can imagine हम local authorities को इतना गालियां देते हैं, बेचारे कितना काम करते हैं, फिर भी हम उनसे satisfied नहीं है. गवर्नमेंट कभी पोल्यूशन नहीं करती, गवर्नमेंट का काम नहीं है पोल्यूशन करना, सिटीजन्स करती है पोल्यूशन, और सिटीजन्स चाहती है कि गवर्नमेंट सब कुछ ठीक रखे. अगर हम पोल्यूशन कम करें तो गवर्नमेंट पे भी लोड कम पड़ेगा. प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, ऑल गवर्नमेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस आर हाईली स्टार्विंग विथ ह्यूमन रिसोर्सेज, क्योंकि हम लोग जाते नहीं हैं उनके साथ काम करने. हम सोचते हैं गवर्नमेंट खराब है, पॉलिटिशियन खराब है, सरकार खराब है, तो हम लोग उससे अपने आप को अलग रखते हैं और अपना कंज्यूमरिस्टिक लाइफस्टाइल को बढ़ाते रहते हैं. तो वो हमको चेंज करना पड़ेगा. Why are not using any type of plastic? I am not using. Oh, very nice, Masood ji. Yes, lot of plus. So we are bringing a change. What are the roles of educational institutions and training institutions in this? Extremely important, but unfortunately, they are not teaching enough. Because see, again, water भी पढ़ाया नहीं जी इस देश में जाता है. तो हम जैसे हम सोशल साइंस पढ़ते हैं, आर्किटेक्चर पढ़ते हैं, प्लानिंग पढ़ते हैं, जहां मैं पढ़ाती हूँ डिजाइन पढ़ते हैं, वहां तो हेल्थ पढ़ाया ही नहीं जाता है. तो मुझे तो अभी आइडिया आ रहा है आप लोग के साथ बात करके, क्यों ना मैं प्लास्टिक एपिडेमिक्स पे ही एक कोर्स शुरू कर दूं, तो उससे लोगों को अवेयरनेस बढ़ेगी, प्लास्टिक टाइप, प्लास्टिक डिजीजेस हम बता पाएंगे. द रूट फॉर एनी चेंज स्टार्ट्स फ्रॉम एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशंस एंड आर्ट्स, अदर मीडियम्स. हम साइंटिफिक एजुकेशन से लोगों को नहीं बदल सकते. हमारे पास सॉफ्ट टूल्स है, आर्ट्स है, म्यूजिक है, अदर काइंड्स ऑफ थिएटर प्रोग्राम्स हैं, एजुकेशनल प्रोग्राम्स हैं. जैसे हम किसी चीज को सीरियसली पढ़ाएंगे वो लोगों को नहीं बदल पाएगा. वी हैव टू यूज सॉफ्ट स्किल्स. बातचीत करना पड़ेगा. आप हर संडे अपने दोस्तों को लेके जाइए ना. मेरे पास एक एग्जाम्पल है रायपुर का, बंच ऑफ फूल्स. कुछ बच्चे हैं रायपुर के, वो हर संडे आपस में मिलते हैं, जैसे दोस्त मिलते हैं, सिनेमा जाते हैं, उसकी जगह वो जाके एक लेक साफ करते हैं, एक कॉलोनी साफ करते हैं. हम ऐसा क्यों नहीं कर सकते? मैंने जापान में देखा है, नेबरहुड में लोग अच्छे से ड्रेस पहन के आते हैं, हर नेबरहुड का एक जैकेट का कोड है, हर संडे वो सुबह जाके अपने नेबरहुड को क्लीन करते हैं, साथ में बैठ के ब्रेकफास्ट करते हैं. दोस्तों हम ये कर ही रहे हैं ना. मेरे यहाँ पे उल्टा 10-12 लड़के आते हैं, दारू पीते हैं और बॉटल्स और प्लास्टिक और डब्बा सब फेंक के जाते हैं. क्या मैं इन बच्चों को बदल के, हम वही एक्टिविटी, वो मिल रहे हैं दोस्तों से, हंस खेल के बातें कर रहे हैं, क्या हम उनका एक्टिविटी बदल सकते हैं? यहाँ पे आता है रोल जो हम बात कर रहे हैं, एक सॉफ्ट एजुकेशन की. हम हार्ड एजुकेशन देके लोगों को नहीं बदल सकते, हमको सॉफ्ट एजुकेशन की जरूरत है. और वो सॉफ्ट एजुकेशन के तरीके होते हैं, जैसे ये कॉन्वर्सेशन है, जैसे हम वेडनेसडेज फॉर वाटर चलाते हैं, तो कॉन्वर्सेशन बहुत जरूरी है. जिस तरह से हम बैठ के 4 लड़के सिगरेट के और क्रिकेट के बारे में बात कर सकते हैं, क्या उस तरह से हम हेल्थ और प्लास्टिक के बारे में बात कर सकते हैं? क्या उस तरह से हम वाटर के बारे में बात कर सकते हैं? जो मैं पढ़ाती हूँ, मैं अक्सर पूछती हूँ ये सवाल, हम नहीं करते. तो हमारा नैरेटिव चेंज होना पड़ेगा सोसाइटी में. हमको चिंता दिखानी पड़ेगी. कितना दुख होता है विराट कोहली जल्दी आउट हो गया तो, अरे इतना दुख हमने दिखाया कि मेरे कॉलोनी में इतना गंदा पड़ा हुआ है. ये हमको माइंडसेट चेंज करना पड़ेगा. कॉन्वर्सेशन इज द बिगिनिंग ऑफ चेंज, वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड. Okay, thank you, Prakash Chandra ji. I have for plastic waste management problems due to plastic usage. Thank you. Okay, we'll have to move on. Yes, please. Yeah. Okay, I can stop here. I don't see much here. And yes, thank you, Sundar, for sharing our talk series of Wednesdays for Water. We have Friday Waters and Monday Munching with Women for Water also. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, and very insightful talks and discussions from our participants also. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
आप इतने enthusiastic थे और इतने सारे questions पूछे. So thank you so much. I'll request, ma'am, if you can also continue answering their questions in the chat also as we move on with the session. So thank you so much, ma'am. So we'll now move on, and I'll request Rashika here to kindly go ahead with the next part of the session. यहाँ पे हम लोग safe water learning cards, आप लोग already aware है अभी कि safe water learning cards क्या है, तो उसके बारे में राशिका अभी बोलेगी, and we will release our next part of the session here. Rashika, over to you.
Sharmila, and it's been a very interesting session so far. Thank you, Mansi ji, and thank you, Anjali, for sharing your research and your work with us. As Sundar sir had mentioned in the beginning safe water learning cards के ऊपर हम लोगों ने collaborate करने का हमें opportunity मिला था, and we got the opportunity to collaborate with the academy group from Chicago, and basically there were a bunch of students who are associated with the academy group. Academy group largely works on bridging opportunities, academic opportunities for students, and specifically the students that joined us were students from Chicago. So ये जो students हमारे साथ जुड़े थे वो उन लोगों ने 1 month हमारे साथ spend किया था, and they as part of the other things that they were doing, one of the things that they did was work on these safe water learning cards, and they did their research on how plastics and water is linked, what is the effect of plastics on water, on the water bodies, on the oceans, and then specifically they got deeper into microplastics and the effect of microplastics on the ecosystems, on human health. So it was a very interesting experience, and the students also like we got to learn a lot through the students. They shared a lot of interesting facts and a lot of actionable steps also that हम लोग अपने daily lives में जैसा हम लोग बात कर ही रहे हैं वो भी हम लोग adopt कर पाए. So this was one project that we were able to do with them. And I would also like to share that Safe Water Learning Cards, INREM Foundation has been has a set of Safe Water Learning Cards on water quality management as a whole. And today we are going to be launching a set on the on plastics and microplastics. So I will just go ahead and share my screen, and आप लोग सभी देख सकते हैं कि ये safe water learning cards कैसे दिख रहे हैं. So this is what these cards look like, and the topics right now in these cards are I'll just change the page. I hope my screen is visible though. Yeah.
Yes, Rashika.
All right, thanks Sharmila. So the topics so far are basics of plastics, and उसमें जैसा अभी मानसी जी ने बताया 7 types of plastics हैं. What are those plastics? Are they really recyclable or not? What are the hazards of all of these plastics? वो यहाँ पे covered, and then what are the impacts of these plastics and microplastics on ecosystems, the impact on human health also, because it is very important that we also know what is happening to us, and maybe that can lead to some sort of a behavioral change at some level. It can be a starting point for many. And then how can we as individuals limit and potentially eliminate the use of plastics, and do our bit towards this. So this is just a starting point of these safe water learning cards, and yeah, this is what they're looking like. We will just go ahead and share a form in the chat box, and आप उस form को भर के अपना request डाल सकते हैं कि अगर आप भी ये cards देखना चाहेंगे. We'll be very happy to share these cards with you. And at the same time, the research on plastics, the research on microplastics is expanding. There are so many new findings that we come across, and the hazards of plastics are increasingly being discovered. जैसा अंजलि ने share किया था that placenta में there is microplastics, breast milk में there are microplastics. So since this field is ever expanding, and we're coming to know about new hazards increasingly, so ये एक work in progress है, and we would also like to invite any one of you, if you're interested in helping us expanding the content that is there in these cards. And iska use is you can use it however you want to use it. Maybe you can use it with children in schools, maybe as an awareness tool in the field locations that you're based in. If you would like to contribute towards such sort of a dissemination, we invite all of you to reach out to us, and we'll be very happy to collaborate on expanding these cards and making these cards much more comprehensive and much more interactive, and hopefully these can be used in many places. So I've shared the link in the chat box here, and आप यहाँ पे अपना request डाल सकते हैं, and we'll be very happy to share the current version of these cards. And I invite any one of you to please collaborate with us and help us keep iterating on these cards. So that was it from my end. Over to you, Sharmila. Thank you, everyone.
थैंक यू राशिका एंड एज राशिका ऑलरेडी मेंशन, अगर आप लोगों को इंटरेस्ट है, अगर आप लोग भी चाहते हैं कि इफ़ यू वुड लाइक दिस कार्ड्स टू बी योर्स आल्सो, तो हम लोग इसको शेयर करने का एक आपको हम लोग तरीका ढूंढ रहे हैं, एंड फॉर दैट वी हैव शेयर्ड दैट फॉर्म विथ यू. अगर इफ़ यू फील लाइक यू आल्सो वांट दिस प्लास्टिक कार्ड्स, जो भी यहाँ पे जो हमारे बच्चों ने जो हमारे एकेडमिक ग्रुप के बच्चों ने यहाँ पे बहुत मेहनत से बनाया है, सो इफ़ यूड ऑल्सो लाइक दोज कार्ड्स, तो प्लीज़ आप लोग गूगल फॉर्म को भरिएगा, एंड वील ऑल्सो सी कि आप सभी को वो जो कार्ड से मिल जाए. So for the next part of the session today, it's the last part, and we'd like to invite circular economy center for environment education group, और वहाँ पे we'd like to invite our next guest here, Tavisi Darwari ji and Rohit Maskara ji. They will be talking about their own experiences and their work, and how about plastics and their day-to-day work that they have been doing, and they will be sharing their experiences with us. So requesting यहाँ पे तवीसी जी और रोहित जी, आप लोग please if you can unmute yourself and if you can start with your session. Thank you. Tavisi ji, can you unmute yourself? So she is here, and I think she is with her teammate here, जो रोहित मस्कारा जी है, and they are both from Circular Economy Center for Environment Education. This organization has been doing tremendous work on this particular issue, and we'd be very glad. अभी वो लोग हम जब I am sure अभी तक का जो हमारा session रहा है काफी engaging रहा है, and a lot of things has come out. And for the last session again, Tavisi, I can see Tavisi ji, I can see you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much, Mrs. Sundar, Navneet, Sharmila, and Rashika, for such an engaging session. I think, as Dr. Mansi rightly said, plastic is the epidemic, and the hot topic to be dealt at the moment. It is equivalent to COVID. I truly agree with her, and I think it is the utmost important thing we should keep in, focus at the moment. So I'm also not a plastic expert, but I would definitely like to share our experiences. Like we have been, my background is that I have been an architect, and post that I have been a development specialist. I have worked in the waste management sector for the past 5 to 6 years, majorly working with the local governing bodies, urban local bodies, village panchayats, and how to tackle plastics in their respective areas and locations. So I would like to share a presentation. Is the presentation visible?
Yes,
I hope the
Tavishi.
presentation
Yes,
is-
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So just to start, since I'm the last speaker, I believe, of the day. So I really thank Dr. Anjali and Dr. Mansi for setting up the context of understanding why it is necessary and important to tackle plastic waste. I will just briefly tell about what Center for Environment Education is, where I currently work. Center for Environment Education is an NGO which acted as a center of excellence for the Ministry of Environment and Forest Change, and it was established in 1984. And since 2016, it has been acting as a center of excellence for the Ministry of Forest and Climate Change. Post that, after 2016, it has been acting as a independent, not-for-profit organization, wherein our sole aim is to impart and dedicate ourselves towards sustainable environmental education program. So we work across various domains, right from biodiversity, climate change, water, wastewater, and even plastic waste. So I currently am involved in a project with the CSR funding of HCFC, where we are trying to establish plastic waste management systems across rural and urban India. So just like by the time, since the context has already been set, I would not like to go through these slides in detail, but I will just run through certain facts which would, reinstigate the fact which has been laid by Dr. Mansi and Dr. Anjali of how important it is to deal with plastics at the moment. So, as it was rightly said that like per capita consumption of plastic in India has now reached 11 kg per day, and out of these, only 60% is recycled. Now, one of the important points which Dr. Mansi, highlighted during her presentation and talk was why only 60% is recycled. Like there can be various challenges. One of the prime challenges it is not getting collected, and then there are other challenges which might be, which of one of the major factor is market-based economy system, which you also spoke about. That is the supply-demand chain. So I'll come to that in a later stage, but I will just briefly highlight the fact that as we already since now have understood that plastics are everywhere and what we are consuming, be it food, water, whatever we apply to even our skins, even the cosmetics, the toothpaste. I read in the chat box, someone was asking that the toothpaste has microplastics. Definitely there are. Some the crystals are there, even the textiles we wear. So definitely the plastics and the microplastics are already there. 267 species around the worldwide have been affected by the microplastics. Now, besides the ocean and marine pollution, which Dr. Anjali spoke about, Dr. Mansi also highlighted of soil pollution. Plastics are also one of the major components which lead to immense soil pollution, which is right now not dealt much at this point in time. The plastics, when they are formed, then when they are manufactured, they contain a lot of additives. A lot of additives are mixed with the virgin plastic to just give strength, durability, and flexibility to the material that is being formed. These like additives, when over the time they are littered in open or are dumped, indiscriminately, they kind of degenerate due to, maybe degradation to sun, photovoltaic degradation, and tend to, these additives tend to leach out into the soil. So they contain highly amount of toxics, which are, really not good for the consumption of humans. And if they further enter into the food chain, which can lead to, many other food value chains, animals eat it, we eat it, and that's how I think the whole process starts. Like we have now heard that it is even entered into placenta, into breast milk, and God knows where. So besides these, so not just soil, water, but it is also impacting our air. You can, the microplastics, which Dr. Mansi was mentioning, that during recycling also you can see certain microplastics are, dispersed into the air, which are not visible to eyes. But once they go into the air and we, breathe that air, they go into the lungs and they impact the human, health badly. So similarly, if they are dumped into the landfills, they, over their degeneration phase, they kind of release carbon dioxide and methane, which further leads to greenhouse gas emissions. So needless to say, as we have, established the fact that plastic as such might not be an issue, but judicial use and disposal is one of the important facts that we must keep in mind. The chart which Dr. Mansi was showing is a very important thing which we all must understand before we are buying, because that is the whole crux where we need to focus once we are talking about responsible consumer behavior. Now, as she also mentioned, that plastics were created, to ease our use because they were durable, they were flexible, they were cheap. But we should understand that how we use it, how much we use it, and how we dispose it is an important aspect, which is our sole responsibility, right? Now, the government is doing a lot of things. CPCB has come up with a lot of guidelines, EPR guidelines, the SUP bans, which is now taken into the phased manner. But definitely, which I will be talking about in the later part of the slide. But these initiatives alone cannot, tackle plastic pollution. These are the remediative measures where we retrospect what we have done and we try to remediate those things. But what the other speakers in the session were trying to, put forth was we need to tackle it without, getting impacted at first. कि बीमार होने से पहले करने से better है we adopt a preventive measure rather than a retrospective aspect of treating plastic. That is one of the things we should understand as as citizens who consume plastic. Now, there were many questions that how and where plastics are linked with. So you can see there are various uses where microplastics can be, primary microplastics come into play, like they are used in cosmetics, they are used in paint, they are used for making toys for children, they are used making coatings, pigments. So there are many other avenues where leakages of microplastics is possible, which we should keep in mind. So this is just a figure. I will not spend much on the time of this slide because this has already been dealt. So, but just to highlight, as Mr. Sundar was also mentioning in the beginning, that a lot of microplastics are, dispersed into the ocean through our laundering. Now, PET bottles, which I think Dr. Mansi was also mentioning in her presentation, the PET bottles, like the Coca-Cola bottles or the Pepsi bottles which we have, those are the PET bottles. The PET bottles, once they go into the recycling, are processed to form synthetic fibers, which are then used for textile making called polyesters, like textiles like polyester, synthetic cloth fabric. So once these types of textiles go into washing, they tend to release a lot of microplastics, which we as a naked eye could not see. They then get disturbed, go into the the underground drainage networks, and then finally reach out to the oceans where they further impact the biodiversity in the ocean. One more aspect which was very, briefly touched, but it is a very important aspect is use of PVC pipe. Now, a lot of research has been done in terms of understanding what has been the impact of plastic waste on the ocean life, on the marine system, on human beings as such. But understanding what is the impact of microplastics in the drinking water or the tap water available to us. As rightly said by Dr. Mansi, since we are in this profession and we try to see what changes have come over the decades, earlier PVC pipes were not used that much, for the water treatment, for transportation of water to all these societies and tanks. But these days PVC is very much in. PVC is not good as such when we talk of use of plastics, as she was also mentioning in her chart. It showed a danger sign, which we also saw. So, but yes, we need to understand that while we are using these plastics, we have to understand what is their impact on us. How can we use it judicially and also dispose it judicially, so that it does not impact any of the living organisms and cannot impact the environment, and including the soil, water, and air. So I will just briefly skip these slides. I will share the presentation. So this is how all our microplastics, be it the primary microplastics or secondary plastics, is entering into the system. We construct roads, we say. So once the process is on, there are a lot of flying microplastics in the air, which is taken into, which is inhaled by the people who are working. They get mixed with the city dust and things like that. So this is also all talked about. What are the implications on plastic pollution on the human health? They affect, once you are inhaling it, they might affect your lungs. Once you are consuming it through food, it can impact your intestines, your placenta. It can also cause hormonal implications and other. And some of the, in fact, the polystyrene cups, which are readily available wherever tea shop you go, in local tea shops you go, you can find those small paper cups. So while we call them paper cups, these are not actually paper cups. They have a very thin microplastic layer around those cups to just hold the plastic. Water alone cannot hold, just hold the water. Paper cannot hold the water. And once a hot material or hot drink is poured into those cups, the microplastic starts to melt. You can see the bubbles when you're drinking the tea from those cups. Those are nothing but the plastics is getting, due to the high temperature of the tea or the coffee or any of the hot drink, the microplastics are getting released and you are consuming it. So these are some of the, avenues from wherein we due to our negligence or ignorance, are not understanding the implications of microplastic or plastic pollution. So what the CE India is doing, so I'll come to that. So CE India is currently working in partnership with HDFC Bank of understanding the, of developing plastic waste management systems across 9 cities in India. So 7 of them are in urban and 2 we are working in the rural cities. So Dr. Anjali very rightly, at the end slide of our presentation, it was rightly mentioned that we can curb, plastic generation through strengthening the circular economy thinking and waste management. So that's what C is currently working on. How can we strengthen the circular economy thinking and also strengthen the waste management systems across the city? It was also discussed during the presentation that how much load is there on the urban local bodies if we talk about. So Delhi alone has a tons of, which I can say 3 to 4 landfills to tackle with, and there is per day generation of waste is kind of exponentially increasing over the decade. So a lot of pressure is there on the urban local bodies to tackle the waste. We as an waste management research-based organization would like to come up and act as a bridge wherein we could suggest and guide or maybe provide technical guidance to the urban local bodies on how they can manage efficiently their waste. Through our engagement in these cities and in rural areas, we are trying to work out with the urban local bodies and the rural, maybe block level panchayat or DRDA departments to help them understand what they should do to manage their waste efficiently. So this is just an overview of how waste is handled in an urban setting. So once it is being produced to plastic waste in manufacturers, it comes to the plastic producers, owners, brand owners. We as consumers consume it, and the post-consumer waste is generated. Now this waste is then taken up by the municipal waste collection vehicles, which come to our doorsteps daily. They may either take it in segregated waste, wet waste alag, dry waste alag, or they can, in some municipalities where there is not proper systems established, they take it in a segregated way. These wastes are then taken to a decentralized waste collection centers where they are further segregated and sorted and then sent to the material recovery facility. From therein, they are further forwarded to the recyclers for further processing. However, the one thing which we fail to understand is the most important sector which plays an important role in, effective collection and management of plastic waste is waste pickers. We don't like to call them waste pickers. So for the presentation and future course of the presentation, I'll be using the word safai saathi. So the independent safai saathis are an important link which many of us tend to ignore or avoid. तो हमारे घरों में भी बहुत सारे कबाड़ी वाले कभी आते हैं जो हमारा जैसे ग्लास बॉटल्स हो गए, पेपर्स हो गए, यूजुअली टेंड टू गिव इट टू देम. So these are the informal networks within a city which are deeply embedded and which we tend to fail to understand that they form an important part of waste collection, especially dry waste collection. We need to understand that plastic waste management and plastic recycling, if we understand, is a market-based system. So the kabadi walas collect the waste from the households. They tend to give the जैसे 1 रुपए या 2 रुपए जितना भी पर किलो के हिसाब से आता है, they tend to give it to you. They further pass it to larger aggregators. When they earn 1 to 2 rupees profit on the waste they have segregated, and then these aggregators send it to manufacturers or other recycling products where they also earn 2 to 3 rupees profit. So it is all a profit run economy. However, we need to understand that there are certain plastics which tend to have more recycling value as compared to other plastics. Some plastics like multi-layer plastics, which we generally use, like plastic chips packets and generally the films around the plastic milk pouches are all multi-layer plastics. These plastics are hard to recycle, and we need to also understand there is a lot of, recycling process is an expensive process. A lot of resources are spent on recycling. So while it is a favorable, option to tackle plastic waste, we should first adopt to, the CR concept, which was also discussed by other speakers of First at all, refusing whatever we can. Second all, reducing our consumption, trying to reuse it, and then trying to reuse it, repurpose it, and if at all it is not further useful to you, you can give it to some other person. So I would just like to bring in one point that urban local bodies right now, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, has come up with a very great initiative called RRR centers. So resource recovery centers. So these centers, what they allow you to do is, once I have something, suppose I have a book which is of no longer use to me, I can go and deposit that in that RR center. Any person who is in need of book can come up, explore the place, and then take that book. So this system kind of promotes a reuse approach, which the citizens should understand, that how we can promote reuse. If a thing is not useful to you, it might be useful to some other person. So like through our intervention, we are trying to bring and streamline. We are not trying to create a parallel system with which is already existing in the cities. But what we're trying to do is we are trying to develop a parallel system. We're trying to develop and strengthen the system which is already existing. We are trying to streamline these informal workers into the formal channels to avoid any leakages and littering of plastic, so that once and all we ensure that entire plastic, that waste that is being generated in the city level is being collected. Only then we can think about how we can manage it, because if we fail to collect the plastic at the first place, it will lead to littering, and then there goes the further chain of then leads to marine pollution, and multi-layer plastics are then generated. So that is the main strategy of the project, that we try to strengthen the existing system. Similarly, in rural areas, there are two types of plastics we call valuable plastics and low value plastics. Valuable plastics are generally the ones which are favored by the recycling companies. They require it, they pay well for those plastics. They can be recycled easily. And then there are low value plastics which cannot be further recycled. Generally, the informal safai sathis tend to collect these valuable dry waste plastics because they tend to earn profit on this collection of those things. Like for 1 kg, they might earn 1 to 2 rupees. Similarly, this leads to collection of only specific categories of plastic. You can always see, they say littering, maybe you can mostly see plastic bags are littered, but you will never see a glass bottle which is littered. You can always see milk pouches littered, chips packet littered, but you will never see a plastic like shampoo bottles to be littered, glass bottles to be littered, aluminium cans to be littered, because these are valuable plastics. Since this entire system is a market-driven, system, only the people, the informal safai sathis tend to only pick those valuable dry and plastic resources and tend to, forego of the low value plastic. But it is the responsibility of the ULBs and the citizens to, understand that these low value plastics, if littered at all, would lead to very harsh implications, be it on environment, be it on human health, or be it on marine health. So through our engagement over the course and through our project, we have tried to understand that what are the challenges when we're trying to implement certain plastic waste management approaches. So one which we have understood is there is a lack of convergence. There are a lot of efforts and initiatives taken up by many organizations, be it government line departments, be it organizations as such, be it research organizations, academians. So there is a lot of research that is already going on, and there is a lot of initiatives that are already taken on in the ground. But we are all working in silos. There has to be a platform like these. Thanks to INREM Foundation for holding these talks. There has to be a platform which promotes exchange of ideas, exchange of thoughts, exchange of learning. This has been a very insightful session, in fact, for me as well. I've got to learn many new things which could only have been possible through discussion. So there has to be certain platforms, certain ways wherein all the stakeholders which are working towards plastic waste management come up, have an exchange of ideas, discuss approaches. So that is the one challenge which we face, that many of us are working in silos, and we need to work together and support each other in the common cause that we are working towards. Secondly, efficient resource recovery. So when we talk of resource recovery, we usually understand that valuable plastics needs to be recovered, but that is not the thing. Resource recovery is not happening because there is lack of collection, leakages in the existing system, valuable and low value plastics, which I've already spoken about, inefficient segregation and sorting. When once a plastic, suppose I will give an example of a PET bottle. A PET bottle is not a single category of plastic. It has an MLP, which is the label that is revolved around it. It is a PET category, which is the entire bottle. Then it has a cap, which is an HDPE or LDPE. So these are three different categories of plastic clubbed into one. So we need efficient measures to further segregate and sort these things. So that, because recycling is only possible once you have efficient sorting. If at all I'm a textile company, I would require just layer PET for my processes. If at all I have other mixed waste coming into my processing systems, it would either block my systems or I will not be able to recycle it. So therefore, efficient sorting is a very important aspect. And that comes with, skill building or empowering of the informal sector. So when we talk of skill building, we are not specifically talking about, how we spread awareness, how we make them understand what is plastic waste. We also tend to help them understand what the different types of plastic. What are the market economics related to different types of plastic? How well you can segregate it? What is the, what precautions you should take while segregating those plastics? So these are all the aspects that we, try to understand and should be implemented while imparting training and capacity building. These are also some of the avenues which can help in, work towards building sustainable business models. Because once a system is institutionalized of collection, segregation, sorting, and then simultaneously a forward linkage system is established, this creates a systemic business model wherein a payment and purchase system can be developed, livelihoods can be generated, and since the market is linked, people can have an consistent source of income. This can provide jobs while you're tackling plastic waste solution. Community engagement participation, as it was rightly mentioned by both our speakers, is the utmost and the underlying challenge which should be tackled. There should be enough awareness regarding plastic pollution, what are the types of plastic, what is the responsible consumer behavior. While, as Mr. Mansi was rightly saying, we need to understand, we need to see those labels, we need to see those very small markings which are generally written that if you return it, you will get one. So these are the kind of, things we need to keep in the back of mind when we're purchasing something. What are the, in what is the wrapping around it? Is it a recyclable packaging material? It is a non-recycling packaging material. What is the implication once, how much time it takes to degrade? What is the implication if it gets disposed or littered? So these are the things which we as a consumer must come forth and, practice in our day-to-day lives. Effective monitoring and traceability. So by effective monitoring and traceability, we have what we have seen over the course of our project is there are no systemic monitoring mechanisms to ensure and trace back the waste stream. So from where the waste is coming, how much the waste is coming. So as it was rightly mentioned that unless and until we quantify, we know the quantity of our waste, the characteristics of waste, how much waste is generated, we cannot, plan to manage it effectively. If we need to plan it, if we need to plan to manage it effectively, we need to understand the waste characteristics. We need to understand the quantification of waste. How much waste the community develops in a particular time? What kind of waste the community develops? What is the consumption pattern of the community? Because once we try to understand and ask these questions, only then we can be able to strengthen the system and establish robust mechanisms wherein we can bring in all the stakeholders together. Through our project, we have tried to develop an effective and monitoring system wherein we are monitoring each and every aspect of how waste is handled, how it is managed, where waste is going, how it can be traced back. So all these systems have been developed through our project. We are working on it. We have developed systems. We have developed standard operating procedures wherein how plastic can be managed at the MRF, how it should be collected, how it should be treated. So we have developed all kinds of standard operating procedures through our, on-field experience that we have gathered over the time. And other important aspect is informal sector. First and foremost, we must acknowledge the contribution of the informal sector to the waste management value chain. So while the urban local bodies are bearing the burden of a lot of load to tackle the plastic waste, it is also essential to understand that once we bring the informal sector on board, they could be an important key to bridge those gaps. Similarly, forward and market linkages. We must once a waste is segregated, there has to be a market linkage to that waste so that it can be further sent for processing. If at all the market linkage is not there, people will, segregate the waste at source, they will collect segregated waste, they will sort it, but then what? Therefore, forward linkages are an important aspect of completing the value chain of plastic waste management. If, this is where the circularity aspects come into play. So that is an important aspect which many of the places we have found the gaps in. So through our projects that we are trying to establish in cities and in rural India, we are trying to improve source segregation. We are trying to work with the communities. We do a lot of social mapping activities. We do a lot of PRA activities with the members. We do a lot of awareness programs with the RWA to help them understand that how, segregation of waste is important at first and why it is important and how should they do it. Because many times we just say you should segregate your dry and wet waste, but we should understand that what we are communicating should also be understood by the people. Wet and dry is a very scientific term which is used, by the people who are working in this profession, but it might not be well taken by the people who are, not from this background. Many a times it is a confusion. What is the wet waste? Are tea bags, do tea bags come into dry waste or wet waste? So we need to keep these things in mind and deliver our, awareness activities, keeping in mind and understanding the context, the background of the, people, and deliver the required knowledge in those, understandings that they should be well taken by the people or the community members. Similarly, we are trying to strengthen dry waste collection and transport mechanisms. Many a times, while cities have well-established systems of waste collection and transportation, there is a gap in the rural area. So we are trying to develop, depending upon the quantum of waste that is being generated, economical model for waste collection and transportation, wherein waste collection is not happening at, daily basis, but we try to work it out that whether it could be done once a week, whether it could be done twice a week, depending upon the quantum of the waste. Similarly, we need to maximize our resource recovery, which can be done through effective sorting at the segregation set, setting up the MRFs, that is material recovery facilities, wherein once the segregated dry waste is brought, it can be further sorted into different categories as was shown rightly by Dr. Mansi. So they can be further sent for processing to the recyclers. Promoting community engagement and ownership. Ownership is the word which one should focus upon. It is my waste, my responsibility. Now, many a times there was a famous belief that not in my backyard, not in my backyard. Mindy was one of the important tools that out of sight, out of mind approaches people used to have. That agar mera ghar saaf hai, it's not forget about how it is being handled, how it is being managed. But people should come up with an approach that it is my waste, it is my responsibility. I should know it, what is the right way to dispose it. I should segregate it so that it is easier for further processing. And I should know what should I consume, how should I consume it, and how much should I consume it. Similarly, including informal sector will not only help in their livelihood generation, it would further help in creating a, avoiding those leakages in the collection system and further empowering them and, giving them the right to what they're doing. Business models, once we talk of institutionalizing these systems, but these systems, if institutionalized, can only be, achieved once there is a market linkage to it. Once there is an economy attached to it, these systems will be self-sustainable, and that's what we are working upon. That's what our model is. We try to work with cities and help them establish a systemic business model, a systemic approach of waste collection and management. And this we do by helping them, understand their systems, understand their gaps, understand their challenges, and concurrently bridge those gaps. We kind of, first of all, go and meet the ELBs, understand their needs, try to do a waste characterization study. We have come up with we recently did a study with QCI in partnership with QCI, a study on the waste characterization in Jammu. So to understand what is the type of waste that is being generated, what are the consumption patterns, since the footfall is also high, how the waste quantum varies over a period of time, just to understand what kind of infrastructure and establishments and operations would be required to meet and facilitate the management of those plastic waste. This kind of study is essential for understanding the needs. So once we have established that, we come into agreements with urban local bodies related to operations and management. We try to bring in a service provider who is locally, who has a local presence, knows about plastic waste, has done work in plastic waste, is equipped with dealing with all sorts of plastic waste. Then we try to engage and empower all the informal small aggregators, recyclers. We try to bring them on board. We try to understand their challenges. We try to empower them by giving them few incentives and support. Like for example, for local kabadi walas, we have tried to give them balers. Baler is a machine which helps in compressing the waste. So once it helps them to compress waste, they are able to store more at one go, because they are only able to take it forward to the recycle once they have a good quantum of waste with them. So we are taking these small initiatives. We are trying to support and bring on board various stakeholders which play a crucial role in managing plastic waste. We do and conduct a lot of community engagement activities. We work with ULBs and rural governments, local bodies, BRDA departments, block level officers to help them develop forward and backward linkages, establish systems. We try to mainstream informal sector. Now, besides providing them trainings on how to collect waste, how to segregate waste, what should be your precautions while handling of waste, we also provide them support in terms of organizing health camps for them once in a while, providing them support to start bank accounts, providing them support to have access to loans which are already available to various government schemes. And we try to basically uplift them and empower them to take up the responsibility of handling plastic waste efficiently. So this is the brief of how we are doing. This is the collection system that we have tried to establish in the village, in rural areas that we are working. Since the quantum of the waste in the villages is not that much, we have tried to establish that at every village level, we try to collect waste twice in a week, like every 4 to 5 days. Once the waste is collected, it is brought to the village segregation shed. Now, the village collection, we have given the sole responsibility of the village collection to the village SHG members, the self-help groups that every village has. We work with the panchayats at the beginning, we work with the SHG groups, we orient them, we train them for efficient waste collection. Entire thing is run and managed by the SHG members. This way, we are trying to develop the community, ownership aspect of management of plastic waste. So once the waste is collected and brought at the segregation shed, it is collected by our vehicles, which come from the MRS, which is at the block level, that is material recycling facility. They collect the waste from the village. They pay the SHG members according to the agreed rates. The rates are finalized with regard to the market. The current market rates which are existing, also in concurrence with the an agreement with the panchayat that the rates they have agreed for different types of waste. That is, for PET they would be giving certain amount of waste for certain kgs, for LD, for SD. So different types of categories, the rate card is fixed with the panchayat, with the SHG members, depending upon the market rate, and the consequent amount of payment is made at the moment to the SHG members for the collection of waste. So this way, kind of, once the payment mechanism is developed, the SHG members also feel motivated for waste collection. They themselves ask citizens and the community members to keep the waste segregated. They want, once a motivation or incentive is given, they're trying to work towards it. But what we're trying to achieve is a community ownership of the waste management aspect. So this way, we are trying to establish a system. Once the waste is collected and brought from the villages to the MRF, it is further segregated and sorted. At the MRF also, we are trying to engage the SHG members. We give them proper training. We give them proper, skill sets to, improve their resource efficiency. So we try to work with them and give them proper training on health, safety, and operations, handling of machines, and all aspects. So once the waste is sorted at the MRS, it is further sent for processing either to the recyclers, or the inerts which are then obtained are either sent to scientific disposals, or the non-recyclables are then sent to cement kilns or for road mixing for co-processing. So this is the kind of setup that we are trying to establish through our project with the urban local bodies. We are trying to establish an MRF facility in the city, in also jointly with the MRC, that is Material Recycling Center. The Material Recycling Center, in adjacent to the material recovery facility, is an added advantage as it helps to kind of reduce the transportation cost and further strengthen the forward linkage aspect. So that is the thing that we're trying to achieve in most of the cities we are working. We are currently setting up MRC in 2 locations, in Jammu Municipal Corporation and in Bastar. The MRC is adjacent to the MRF as shown in the diagram. So this would help and further strengthen the forward linkage that we were first talking about, because the recyclers, there is a further transportation cost that is attached to the recyclers. So just to curb that, we are also proposing these in many of the locations. So these are the main functions that we are conducting right now in the MRF, which we have worked in various cities. We are trying to, once the waste, segregated waste comes to the center, it is properly weighed. It is then put on the conveyor belt, where it is further gone to secondary source of segregation, where unwanted materials, if at all, can be removed. The PET bottles are then sent for the baling machine. The other materials like the plastic polythene bags and MLPs are sent to the Fatka machine or air blower machine, where the dust is removed and they are further shredded and packed, which can to be sent to the recyclers for further processing. Now, one has to keep in mind, which is rightly one aspect which is also rightly mentioned by Dr. Mansi, was there's a lot of microplastics that are dispersed into the air through these kind of activities like plastic shedding. So in our centers, we have tried to, keep in mind all these aspects, and we have designed our MR in such a way that we can, tackle these aspects. Our MRF centers are fully by the norms of the pollution control boards. We have established these centers, and we try to maintain all these aspects in our MRF centers of health and safety. We have also kind of provide other amenities like safe drinking water, basic sanitation, and other facilities for the Safai Mitras who work at the MRF, to just make the place more inclusive. At certain locations in our project at the MRF, we are also kind of running schools for the, children of the Safai Sathis who are working at the MRF. So, talking of the monitoring and traceability of the waste, we have developed robust systems. We try to understand where the waste is coming from, how much waste is generated, what types of waste are generated, what is the quantum of waste received. These systems are developed just to, understand any gaps and, develop any preventive measures or course corrective measures that we must be having, in various locations, because we cannot have a one-fit-all model in all the locations for managing plastic waste. We work as we go. So these type of tools help us to understand what are the challenges. Are we moving ahead in the correct way? What can be done further, to improve our systems of management and also tackling of plastic waste. So these are the kind of monitoring systems that we have dealt with. I'll not be delving deeper into this. And this way, once we are trying to take it to the recyclers, we are trying to promote an approach of circular economy where the system, once the waste is generated, it is post-consumer waste is generated, it is collected, it is segregated, it is further sent sorting. After sorting, it is sent to the recyclers, and from therein, it is remanufactured into the product. However, at this point, I would also like to highlight one of the important aspects is standards. Right now, we don't have any BIS standards related to recycled products. How much of the virgin is used, how much of the recycled product is used. There is no such standards yet established at the moment. But definitely, I think once the recycling sector takes up the pace, there would be standards that would be established. These standards would also be helpful to understand what is the toxicity level of these recycled plastics, how should they use it, and how much durable, or what is the rate of biodegradability of those recycled plastics. So these are just coming to the end of the presentation. These are just of the glimpses of how we do. We try to engage with all the stakeholders, be it at the urban level or at the rural level. We try to engage with the communities, understand how they perceive plastic waste, what are the challenges they are facing in terms of managing plastic waste. We try to have collection and drop points established. So this is one of the important aspects that I would like to highlight here is, one of the speakers also mentioned the buyback system. So many of the products that we currently have, like the X-Rate example that was mentioned. So once you give it to the seller, you get ₹1 back. So we need to make people aware about these kind of systems that are already existing but are not apparently promoted. So this is one of the systems where we try to make people aware of how they come and they deposit the plastics, and in return we used to give them either a cloth bag or a mask. So masks were because this initiative was started during COVID, so we used to give them either mask in return or exchange of 1 kg of plastic that they used to bring, or a cloth bag. So if a citizen brings about, suppose 1 kg of plastic, there were many 3 to 4 chambers that we had kept. We used to ask them to deposit those 1 kg of plastic as per their category. So this way we used to help them understand that once they do it themselves, they will understand what is the different category of plastic that they are generating, and what is the quantum. So you can see the quantity of PET bottles in the plastic in the leftmost picture. One of the other initiative was a reverse vending machine. So these is also an incentive-based model where we are trying to collect the waste and make people aware about plastic littering while providing them certain incentives. Like these machines are generally placed in certain tourist locations where people deposit one plastic bottle and they get a coupon of maybe ₹5 off, ₹10 off a nearby cafe, or certain local shopping shop, or some aspects like that. For example, in Bastar, we have linked this reverse vending machine with a local eatery shop which is run by the tribal community there. So we give them ₹5 off once they deposit a plastic bottle. So this model has worked very well in many of the tourist locations by incentivizing people, and helping them understand that we should not litter. So we also work with SHG members and train them to run the MRF and the facility, and help them understand how to segregate what are the different types of plastics. So we also make them aware, and we kind of help them understand that if they don't keep their villages clean, they could lead to further spread of diseases, like as it was mentioned in earlier presentations, that plastic littering can lead to stagnation of and blockages of wastewater streams, the nalas, which can lead to stagnation of water, and breeding of mosquitoes happens, and then it can further impact the health. We kind of provide some kind of small support to the SHG members that we work with. We give them certain incentives where they can, which help them feel motivated towards working on plastic waste management. So this is one of the glimpses where we try to engage with the local SHG members and help, and a pledge was taken by all the SHG members to manage their plastic waste responsibly. So this is an interesting, engagement with the community where we try to not, teach them, but understand from them and help them, communicate with them that why is it important to, tackle the plastic waste. So this is the MRF, and this is how we train the SHG. These are the SHG members trained by us. They are kind of doing secondary segregation of the waste. We engage with schools. We try to provide awareness camps to the schools. We help them, understand how they are using plastics in their day-to-day life. This is again a pledge and social mapping activity that we did in the villages, which also helps villagers and community members understand what the resources they have, and how they can, use those resources to tackle their waste. We are also working with various other stakeholders, like I was talking about. We work with small scale aggregators. We work with facility managers to how to improve and strengthen their systems. So this is the waste collection from the village segregation. So this is just a glimpse of it. And now what should we do to move ahead? While a lot of it has already been talked about, but the point which I need to highlight and I would like to highlight is we should understand that managing waste is our responsibility. And if we think that any government can do it or any private agency can do it, or it is not my task to, handle my waste, that is somewhere we need to work upon. Waste is something which we need to understand. We need to understand what we are consuming. We should limit our consumption only to our needs, and as it was rightly mentioned, not to meet our greed. So, and that too, we have to understand that once we are using it, also how we can, repurpose it, reuse it, and also understand how we can, dispose it effectively. So those are the some things which, I have had learned through my experience on working in the plastic waste management sector. Hope it was useful for all the members here. So, and for me, it was a really engaging session. I got to learn a lot of things of all the peers who are working on this sector, and I will look forward to have such more engaging sessions. Thank you. I'm open to
Thank you.
questions.
Yes. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your insightful things and also sharing your experiences and works that CE has been doing. I'm sure the participants also learned a lot from here. We have actually exceeded some time, so I think some of the participants might have already left. But for all the participants here, if you have any questions, feel free to write down in the chat box. For now, I would like to formally end the session, but we'll take the after discussions also. So if you are interested to, or if you have any other questions that you would like to ask ma'am here, you can please stay back and you can ask that. For now, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all our esteemed speakers here, Dr. Mansi, Anjali ji, the VCG, for coming here and sparing your time and sharing the insights, as well as to us, as well as to the participants. Thank you for your presence.